Okay, we'll go ahead and call the study session to order. First up on our agenda, we have a public comment period, and this is time for the public to make comment for items that are not on the agenda. We do have a pretty full study session tonight, so I am going to limit that to 3 minutes. If you could please come up to the podium if you'd like to make comments, state your name, your address, then you can make that comment. So I'll invite anyone up for public comment today.
You're doing that again for the other meeting, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay, seeing, oh, Matt, come on up.
Real quick. Yes, and I will be quick because I know you guys have a lot to do. I just want to stop in, quick update on Matt Adams, 472 Lake Drive. Quick update on the Region Arcade. We are in the middle of our relocation, but we did find a nice spot just down the block at the end of Locust Street in the old creative event space. So we're very excited for that and grateful for the business owners to allow us to do that. Not only gives us a place to go from a temporary perspective, it's going to allow us to be in a retail space. So we'll have another storefront in Allegan that will be filled with, we'll have game room supplies, bar stools, mini refrigerators, that kind of stuff for home and office. And it also just allows that business owner kind of a transition period as they look to do their remodeling and getting that building back to the community. And in the meantime, we've got some really good leads on long-term partners for us to stay in the city. So just wanted to say that and wanted to thank city staff. You know, Parker is a big part of that, getting us started, and city council that helped the arcade start in the first place here at the Regent Theater. So thank you.
Are you open yet?
We will, yes, we are going to be ready to open on Friday at 5 o'clock.
Thanks, Matt.
No interruption to business.
Awesome, thank you.
I changed my mind.
Okay, come on up. And again, if you could just state your name and your address for us, please.
Yep, my name is Matt Seif, and I live in Allegan. And I've had an issue with my neighbor, who I can't diagnose, and I've been asking Officer Gibson and other officers for help with this since I moved here about 6 years ago. And I think it's like undiagnosed narcissism, maybe. I'm really having issues with communication, so I would have tried to bring this up with Officer Gibson, but I think that there might be an issue there also. So I'm trying to be as respectful and work with people as best I can. So I hope you are all aware of that, because misdiagnosing me is really messing me up.
Okay.
Instead of addressing causes of problems. Okay.
Okay.
So I know sometimes I sound, a certain way, I guess. Thank you.
That's all right, thank you, Matt. Is there any other further public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on down to the next agenda item, which is a roundtable discussion amongst council members. Council, was there any roundtable issues you'd like to bring up tonight? No? I just have a couple quick things. Parker, Michaela, myself, and Joel had attended the MML conference last week and got some really great information. We tried to divide and conquer at some of the breakout rooms, but we all did attend the same workshop, which was about the My Water navigation system. Could come in handy for the city. Basically, the state has put together a portal that you can find grant and funding opportunities for your water systems. So they will kind of link you up with that, help you with the application process. That's just getting up and running. Sounds like a really amazing thing. I attended, and Parker, a workout or a breakout session about the housing issue. And coincidentally, I think 60 Minutes had one that following Sunday about how this is a national crisis. And what was it, Parker? Like 50 to 75,000 houses are needed in the state of Michigan every year, but only 17,500 were constructed in 2021 and are projected for 2022. So this is a conversation that zoning is really talking about, is that missing middle housing and how to get some more housing available through accessory dwelling units or whatnot. So just so everybody's aware of that. And then I know that we have becoming a green community as one of our goals for the upcoming year. I attended a green community workshop and actually learned that there is the Michigan Green Community, they have basically a challenge that the city could get involved with. And you get certain points for that, you can get awards, and the state also has some grant opportunities through Eagle and their climate change. So I found that really, really beneficial. Did you guys want to speak quickly about anything that you learned?
No, it was just a good, I think, couple of days spent in the Capitol. Like you said, Mayor, there was a lot of opportunity to hear from state officials and other professionals in their field and gain some really cool insight. So it was a good couple of days. We were glad to tag along, glad that you tagged along.
Yeah, it was really great. I will say that the MML is really actively advocating for increased revenue sharing for the city. And Tracy, I just kind of looked that up today because with the census, there was kind of some concern of we could owe money if we didn't like meet a certain threshold of growth in the community, or we could actually gain money. Do you know where we're at right now?
As far as the growth goes, I'm not sure on that. I mean, I'm working on budget numbers now.
Okay,
I don't know if that's taken, that was applied to that, so
Okay.
I'll look into that.
good deal. All right. If there's nothing else for roundtable, we'll go ahead and move on down to a discussion regarding a school resource officer agreement. I'll start with staff.
Sure. We've got Chief Gibson here tonight to expound on this topic. It's been something that I know he's been here in front of you all in the past recently and has been championing this effort in front of the surrounding townships as well as with the school board. So I'll let him kind of dive into it a little bit deeper with you.
Thank you. The numbers you see were put together by city staff, mainly by Tracy. We needed to, so just to, I think I mentioned this back at our early budget meetings in January. In order for me to go to the townships, I needed to have some numbers. And the reason that I had to go to the townships prior to this meeting and our future meetings is that their budget year starts April 1st. So I wasn't trying to put the cart in front of the horse, but in order for them to put money aside for this agreement, I needed to get it on their agenda, get it on their plate, have discussions with them. And I'm very grateful and excited that all of the townships have agreed to take part in this. So the schools wanted to remain close to that top number there for their budgetary reasons. And I knew kind of where we wanted to remain. So by going to Cheshire, Trowbridge, and Valley to cover basically 10%, they're each picking up the 3.3. That allowed us to kind of stay with the discussions I had with Mr. Antoine, the superintendent, on where he would like to be. Allegan Township agreed to do 20%, which is great. They didn't have to do that, and none of the other townships had to do it either. So I went to all the meetings. Valley, Trowbridge, and Cheshire have already voted on it and agreed to, if it goes to fruition, again, I'm not trying to put the cart in front of the horse, but they have agreed to a 5-year contract. I think contract language was sent to you. It's a rough draft. Nobody's signed anything. They haven't seen it yet. But I had to get the language in place so that if we, in our discussion tonight, it looks like that we want to move forward with that, then we can forward the contract language to those folks so that they can take a peek at it. The school board has not voted on it, but they have had discussions on it, and they're very much in favor of it. Mr. Antoine's very much in favor of it. The building administrators are very much in favor of it. And as far as us, I think it's a great service that we can provide, great relationships we can build. We used to have, I think it was 15 years ago, the county had an officer in the schools, and 10 or so years ago, we had someone in the schools for a few years. And I think it was around, maybe Tracy, 2009, when we had to, the budgets were hurting back there in 2008 with the housing issue. We had 11 officers and we had to pare down through attrition to 9, and we just weren't able to continue to provide that, and the schools weren't able to continue to offer their piece. But Chief Hoyer and former Superintendent Harness all tried to get it back in place over the years, and we had some advanced discussions right before the pandemic hit, where we were trying to get back in that direction again. And I was able to, as I said, go to all these different boards and get them on board, which I'm very thankful for. And now I'm looking for direction from council on your thoughts, your concerns, if you want me to move forward, because I mean, we're a piece of the puzzle too. I mean, we're the housing vessel for that employee. We're gonna have, I don't know if you remember, the mindset right now is that there's gonna be two, one on each side of the schedule. And what that does for us is, not only are we providing the service to the school and the children, but we have the piece of on Saturday and Sunday, we only have one officer working. So they're by themselves on those shifts. If they want the time off, it's always overtime to cover that. And for example, like, you know, Officer Meade, he works Monday through Friday right now. If he's to pick up somebody Saturday and Sunday, he's gonna work 12 in a row. Yes, is he getting overtime? But then, you know, that's not ideal. And then for the other day shift officer who works every other weekend, they're then working 3 weekends in a row. Now, yes, they mix and match, but it sometimes is difficult for those guys to get those days covered. And not to mention, when they're not in school, or not in school, we'll have two. Maybe not all the time, because that's when folks will get the time off, but we're not gonna have to pay overtime to cover that. So there's a big benefit for the school. There's a big benefit for, you know, I call it my house as far as like the coverage goes. I mean, the guys don't like working by themselves. I mean, it is what it is, but it's nice to have somebody else around if you need it. And there's a lot of pieces that go with that. I mean, there's trainings that I want to send them to. There's a training, I'm not sure why it's in October when school starts in August, but there's a training through the Michigan State Police. It's called TEAM, Teaching, Education, and I lost it. Teaching, Education, and mentoring. Thank you. Teaching, Education, and Mentoring. Thank you, Gary, for the backup. And basically, it's a 40-hour class where they get all sorts of different avenues of training. They get to over 30 pieces of curriculum that they can teach because you're going to tailor it to what age group you're speaking to. And I think that's an important piece. And they also get training from content experts on juvenile and student psychology so that they can be more well-rounded, try to offer needs, and basically just collaborate with other people and just have another adult in the classroom. I also like the idea of two, because somebody may like Tracy more than they like Jay, or just bond with them more, or their personalities mesh more. So, you know, there's another mind or another person that they could talk to if they feel comfortable with her as opposed to me, or vice versa. And I know that the school is very excited about the possibility of us going into partnership with them. I'm very excited about it. It's something that I've been trying to do for a long time. It's not going to hurt our coverage. So what's going to happen is that Monday through Friday, I will now become the second car. I will take more complaints and do more of the road work, which is fine. I mean, I've done it for 25 years. It's not going to affect me one way or the other. And it's, again, I like to use I think I stole this from Rick, but, you know, it's community organization self. I mean, so it's whether or not, so that's, I'm just looking for feedback. I would like to start to move forward with planning, setting up officers for classes. We have to have a department meeting on how we're going to reorganize, who's going to do that position. Then we would have to hire somebody. And the piece that I would also throw in there is as far as the hiring process, if we're to do it, I might want to try to start them 6 weeks earlier than July 1st. Because if I bring somebody on, we need to train them through the FTO program, so I'll need the summer for that. And then that way, when school starts, those two can go into their role. That person will probably, I don't know that they'd be on nights, that's my guess, but they could be on days if, say, one of the night officers did not want to come to days. But those are all internal pieces that we would work through. And I would tell you that the officers were excited about the opportunity to come to the meeting tonight. They're looking forward to it. When you have a smaller house, it's nice to have different things to do, you know, different assignments that you can get involved in. Sorry, my phone was vibrating. He knew I was in a meeting. So I'm just looking for feedback, thoughtful discussion, concerns that you may have. I know that we had some of that back in January. And again, this role and how I view it and how the school views it is that we want to be on a first-name basis with these kids, have a relationship with the kids. And talking to other organizations that do have that, they find it invaluable because the kids know them. They're on a first-name basis, they're comfortable with them, they see them. They're in all the buildings. We won't have a lot of overtime associated with it because the contract really those officers would probably only go to certain few of the special events, i.e. homecoming, prom, graduation. Our night shift can still cover sporting events and band events or anything like that they can pop into without having to flex that schedule. The officers have asked, what if they want the day off, not the school resource officer, then I just come in earlier and cover when they have to go to school. So there's not a coverage issue there. It improves our coverage, it improves our services in my mind. And I'm just looking for some feedback and any questions you may have.
Thanks, Jay. I will say, I know this has been a passion project of yours for a few years. We've talked about it probably at least 2 years ago. And your dedication to this and going to all of these townships and getting these extra funding sources is just really appreciated. And I know that. My only question is, you keep talking about 2 officers, but you're only hiring 1. There would be 1 officer that's currently part of the department that would take on that other role?
No,
That
so
opposite
there would
role,
be-
or are you looking to hire 2?
No, we're only hiring 1.
Okay.
So what you have is when you put 2 into that, so basically Chris Mead works Monday through Friday right now. And I think I know who the 2 officers that would be interested in doing it. And I think Chris is one of them. He would not be in the Monday through Friday rotation anymore. He'd be on one side of the shift, so you can call in an A and a B. So one week you work Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The next week you work Wednesday, Thursday. So there's the opposite side that covers the days that you're not working. So there's gonna be 1 on each side of the shift. So say Chris is Monday, Tuesday, Friday, the other officer's Wednesday, Thursday, he'd be in the schools Wednesday and Thursday. I'm the second car, I'm the Monday through Friday car that helps the 12-hour car cover calls and answer calls. And there's gonna be days that I'll be the only one on the road, which is fine. I mean, if that 12-hour car, that's the complaint car, wants a day off, then I'm in by 7:30 so that the school resource officer can make his way up to the school. I take all the calls until they're done at 3:30, and it should be really seamless. And again, there's the money benefit of, we're not gonna pay that overtime, because shift coverage is our number 1 overtime that we pay when people want off. And that includes that period from 4:30 till 8:30 when Chris would come in. Sometimes he would have to start at 4:30 if the day car was off. Well, the school resource officer in that agreement, life happens, right? There's gonna be times where they're gonna need a day off, but by and large, when they take that position, it's really try to take your days off when school's out of session. The weekend, spring break, winter break, summer vacation. And there's be very few times that I would approve both of them off. It'd have to be, what life event do we both have going on? Okay, that makes sense, but not just. So, yeah, that's the idea on that.
Okay, thank you. Council, were there any other questions for Jay, or do we want to talk how we're feeling about this school resource officer position? Give him some direction?
Made sense in January, and you've done your work, and congratulations. I'm all for it.
Yeah, we've talked about this a bunch of, several times, and I've had some questions and some concerns, and you've answered all those, and quite honestly, I trust you and I trust your judgment, so I think it's good, and you've done a great job getting it done.
Thank you.
Peter? Nothing?
I
about
think
you,
it's a
Teresa?
great idea. Thank you, Jay.
How about from you, Dave?
I'm supportive, yeah.
Bill?
Nothing for me. Jay, that money that you put up there, is that just the wage? Or is that the total compensation?
It's all the wage-driven benefits. What it doesn't cover, it doesn't,
Car usage, insurance, and all that other stuff's in there or not?
no. Insurance for the individual,
On top of all that?
so the health insurance is on top of that. If you're talking like a vehicle, so the gas, they're not gonna be using a lot of gas.
No.
So your uniform's not on there. This is all your wage-driven benefits, your
That's it.
401K, your pension, your your health insurance, that's,
Total cost for the project is actually higher than 20%, is that true?
it'll be a bit higher, that 20%. You're talking your cost of gas, I suppose, if you want to include the cost of vehicle insurance, uniforms, training. The school's not afraid to help, as we discussed. The school's not, so I would probably go to the superintendent and say, hey, this is what the team class costs. You know, you willing to pay for that, share it? And if there's additional trainings that they would like us to go to, then I would say, if that's a training that you want them to go to, then we would like you to, pay for that. And again, James has been very supportive of this. I don't see that being an issue. But yeah, to answer your question, is there a little bit more to a cost than that? Yes, but like I said, I mean, they're not gonna be driving around a whole lot, so the cruiser's not gonna be getting a lot of work. And the uniform, all of them already have the uniform. The new hire uniform is gonna be about, like, total outfit. I just did it for Officer Dykeman. It's like $4,000, but that's a one-time. Generally, I mean, you're gonna have to, down the way, replace some things, but more of your big-ticket expenses that we incur are a one-time. Like our vests, we're due for new vests. It's in the budget this year, but Janelle's, in the past, always been able to get a grant to pay for half the expense. So we do realize some savings, with grant monies and other sources of income with that, so.
But all those things are stuff that you use anyway, so I mean, that
Right,
conducive to just this program.
right.
Tracy, did you have anything to add as finance director?
The only thing I would add is that we did work these numbers into the budget that will be proposed here next month, and that in that calculation, we use the top of the pay scale, figuring they're not gonna, depending on what type of individual he gets to hire, they might start on the lower end of the scale and work their way up, but we just, assuming they had a full family for insurance. So that is a very conservative number there, not actual, so that would be the only thing I would add, that it's in the budget and those are on the, very high end of what it would cost us.
And she made a good point too, in that, so we're gonna hire somebody on a defined contribution plan. So the wage-driven benefits for who we're gonna hire are less than what this is paying, because the two officers that are gonna be in there are on a defined benefit plan. So their wage-driven benefits are more than the defined contribution piece, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Anything further about this agenda item, council? Jay, do you feel like you got your direction?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think, I'm in support. I heard support pretty much all around.
so council's fine with me sending it off to the townships and the school to look at the agreement. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered. Nobody signed anything, but I want them to be able to review the document, come back with any concerns. Is there any added language that we want in the document? I would say that I've had, folks talk about FERPA, and that's, so the schools are totally in charge of all the information of these kids and their family. That's not something that we use. The only thing that we would have access to probably is to have a desk so that we have the ability they would have the ability to look at the security cameras if they need to and things of that nature. And the schools are in charge of school discipline. Schools already have policy in place for school disciplinary issues. I'm not naive enough to think that we would never have to do something on our end. I mean, we do have, fights occur, damage occur, threats. Those are things that, if those happen, there's a school piece there, but there also could be a piece where we're involved on that end. But that's not why we're going there. We're going there to establish relationships, try to help provide a better environment, and get to know them and help them in any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down the agenda. Next up, we have a discussion regarding the downtown streetscape improvement project. Parker?
So over the past few years, obviously, as you all know, we've been working diligently on structuring a plan for the downtown streetscape improvement project. This first phase includes all of Brady Street, all of Locust Street, Hubbard Street, from Walnut Street right there between the Griswold and the library, stretching down to Water Street. That includes sewer main relocations, utility repair underground, roads, sidewalks, street furniture, all that kind of fun stuff. So it was requested, I think, at a couple meetings ago, I believe by Councilmember Redding, to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the financing structure. So Tracy is going to kind of guide the rest of this discussion. What you see on the board is or on the screen rather, is a breakdown of those costs. And if there's further questions that I can't answer or Tracy can't answer, I know Tony McGee from Avonmarsh is hanging out in the back too, and he'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have that we cannot tackle. So I'll pass it off to Tracy quick, and she can kind of walk us through the numbers you see on the board.
So, the most recent numbers that we've received from Avonmarsh are the, numbers on the left-hand side of the screen under expenditures. And the breakdown of what portion of, or what funds they're gonna come from the city. Including the design and construction engineering, so water, sewer, streets. The total for the project currently is estimated at 6.4. The right-hand side of where the revenue is where we are planning to get the money fund to fund this. So we have $99,000 from a USDA grant that has been granted, the ARPA funds that we received, a little over $526,000. The federal money, the $250,000, was from Representative Upton that I think Joel had updated you guys on. And then the bonding that you guys approved at the last council meeting for water and sewer. And then we're gonna use some of the fund balance in our general fund. In addition, later, I think in the regular meeting, we have the information on the general obligation gold bonds to bond for whatever might be left over in a not-to-exceed amount, but we'll be going over that later. Besides that, that's pretty much the gist of where we're assuming that we're gonna get the money from to pay for this downtown streetscape project. And we're continuing to look for other grants and ways to fund it so that we don't have to use or either bond or use as much general fund balance. But at this point, this is the breakdown that we have.
Thank you, Tracy and Parker. Tony, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Tracy covered all. She said we got a couple grant sources that will be submitted in the next few months that might help offset some of this.
Thank you. And I just got an email today that Governor Whitmer did sign or is going to sign that Building Michigan Together plan, which there is quite a bit of funding available. That's some of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the funding that the state received from the federal government. So I don't know if that's something we can kind of look into more as well. Okay. Council, did you have any questions or comments about this plan? I know we've been talking about it for quite a while. Dave, did that answer some of the questions you had?
Yeah, that helps. One thing I was curious about is the Iron Bridge project and the roundabout. Is that included in this, or that's separate,
Nope,
already paid for?
that's separate from this.
All taken care of?
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll be going over a lot more of that with our budget meetings that are coming up in April. But we have all of that in the budget as well.
Okay.
And these things won't happen, obviously, if a lot of these other things don't come together. But, you know, that's the plan, is that all these things are gonna happen this way, and if they do, then we'll proceed.
Okay. And then I saw the White House put out like a plan for, or a guidebook, I should say, for applying for funding, and the state's got their own guidebook. What does our process look like for chasing after those funds, like making sure we get in line?
Tony, do you wanna?
Yeah, that's, I'll actually podium, just keep it official-like. How's everybody doing this evening? We actually have 2 grant writers on staff that know what projects we're working on and look for grant opportunities. When they see them that align, they write the grants for our various clients on their behalf. So we are tracking all those things, including MEDC just announced a new downtown placemaking grant. We think this aligns very well to, that you can go in for anywhere from $500,000 to $5 million. The size of this project, we feel, is a $1 million request. So that's gonna be one that's due May 24th. They'll be going for it. That's out of these programs you're talking about. So we watch for them when the opportunities come up, we apply for them for you.
Do you know, did we apply for like CLG funding for, say, the Iron Bridge? Yeah, that would be like under that MEDC placemaking umbrella, the CLG.
Oh, I
programs
don't
kinda
know
in
that the
there.
bridge would be eligible. Sorry, I'm pardon you, if I said CIG and I was rattling my head what that was. Did the city apply for CLG on that, do you know?
I
don't think
can't, with all the different things that we've applied for, I can't remember off the top of my head. I can look into it, but I swear we've applied for those, but I don't think that qualified for so many grants for a couple different
I
reasons.
want to check, but I think the same thing. I can't say
And I
that
can't remember the
authoritatively,
reason
I'll
why, but
look.
I'll write that down to follow up on and get that information to you.
Okay,
So it was CLG you were saying?
yeah.
I'll send you a link to it.
All right.
I don't remember it going
I-
in, but it doesn't mean it didn't.
Yeah, and I can't recall either. I know we've applied for things and we've received that grant. I just can't remember what for right now.
Okay.
Council, were there any other questions? Clarification on anything?
The only thing I would add to Dave's question is from the city side of that with MMTA, MML, things like that. We get a lot of emails and things too, like when they're made aware of grants that are available or new programs, state or federal or whatever, we get so much information emailed to us. It's just, does it qualify? And then we'll normally forward them on to Tony to say, does this qualify, and go through that, so.
I was struck by the White House's guidebook, I think is 465
Mm-hmm.
pages, and that's a lot of information to go through, but it also covers so much. And then the state program that came out, there's all these different categories, so I thought to myself, I hope we've got somebody
Yeah.
who's kind of working full-time to understand these, and, because that
that's-
can yield a lot of money,
can
so
be.
it's worth the investment.
Yeah, very much. That's why we have 2 people. That's all they do is track those kind of programs.
Okay, now are they advocating primarily for the city of Allegan, or do they service?
We
like-
have, we're engineer of record, that's where we actively look for those. There's about 8 cities we do that for, so it's not a ton, considering we have 2 people and not everybody's got a ton of projects going on at a time, so we have more than enough staff capacity to track it.
Do you ever make efforts where, like, if you're representing 8 cities, you would go to a government body or a representative and say, hey, on behalf of these 8 cities or these 5 cities that fall into this category, you know what I mean? Like
We
a
always keep it separate.
collective.
We have one
Yeah.
person that advocates for the different cities, so there's not like, we're going behind it. We may talk to a state agency or a lawmaker about a policy issue that may be impacting all of our cities, not in a great way. For example, right now, I'll go in the weeds on some stuff, SHPA requirements are becoming quite onerous for communities. State Historic Preservation Act, and not that there's anything wrong with them, but you have to now use like a licensed archaeologist to do the research. You can't just have staff do that. Some of that kind of stuff adds costs and expenses to cities. We'll talk to that broadly on behalf of all of our clients, but specific grant programs, we keep them one-on-one with that client in that program.
Okay, I was just thinking sometimes there's a benefit if folks understand that this is an area issue or there's several municipalities.
Right.
And so that's kind of where, I know there's like multi-client lobbyists that will go and advocate.
That's a little bit different, right, exactly. We don't get into lobbying thing that would kind of get us in trouble. We do outreach and education.
Okay, that's good to understand.
So hopefully that helps. But yes, we actively look for things on your behalf and communicate with city staff on a regular basis on those things.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And I can add that Peter Dickow, he was, what was his title? I can't think right off the top of my head.
His exact title, I don't know either, but he was from
He's
Senator
from-
Gary Peters'
Yeah,
office.
Senator Gary Peters in the U.S. Senate. He came into Allegan on March 17th and did a tour of our downtown. That was the office where, by the airport, got some of that additional grant funding. So they came in and I met them, Parker and Mr. Dickow, for lunch. And he had mentioned that there are some, I don't want to use it, but like earmarks, even at the federal level now. So Senator Peters' office is available to basically request funding through as well from that level. So that's kind of how we ended up getting that $250,000 from Upton's office. And so there's something similar that the Senate is able to do. So keep in mind, I don't know that staff's really on top of that, so. All right, is there anything, Peter?
Tracy, with 4 million in bonding in this, how is that gonna affect our overall bonding capacity that we have or capabilities?
I do have notes on that, and I can email everybody. I don't recall off the top of my head. We just had a conference call with our bond attorney and bond counsel, or, the investment banking people that figure out all the number side of it. And we're still okay with all of these things. With the gold bond that we're gonna go over tonight too, we have a not to exceed amount, which is a lot more than that number, but it puts us in a place that I'm not comfortable with, but I don't think we're gonna have to get to that point, but the notice of intent is just that it's not to exceed. I don't like to borrow the money at all, but we're still okay, according to the, bond counsel and, in the methods that we can use with MTF bonds versus, and the water and sewer ones, so it splits that up enough that we're still okay.
And is bond costs going up lately, or has it been stable? I know a lot of other costs for lending has gone up quite a bit in the last month or two.
I say the sooner we do it, the better, but, because it is going up, but we haven't got that far in the talks, because we're not there yet, so I don't know what they're gonna actually come in at.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for the update, everybody. And thank you, Tony. Next up, we have a discussion regarding the City of Allegan rental ordinance. Parker, you gonna start with that?
Yeah. So again, either it was our last council meeting or a couple ago, it was brought up by Councilmember Morgan. We wanted to have a little bit of discussion with the council regarding rental inspections in the city of Allegan. A little bit of history. In 2016, the city changed their inspectors from Michigan Township Services to Professional Code Inspectors, PCI, as we refer to them as. And when that switch happened, MTS was providing rental inspection services. When we switched, PCI no longer offered that service. Their business no longer, or did not offer that service to begin with. So that was no longer done through the city of Allegan. So we haven't had rental inspections done since 2016. I know that there has been discussion in past councils since then, and like I said, Councilmember Morgan has kind of led that conversation with this council. So included in your packet was just some more information on what goes into rental inspections. In the municipalities that we've talked with that offer this service, municipalities that some staff members have come from in the past, know that it's not a money-making venture for cities, for municipalities. The inspections are done just internally on these rental units. This isn't anything that deals with outdoor blight, garbage outside, overflowing dumpsters. It's mostly internal. I shouldn't say it's all internal or doesn't deal with external. But it's a lot of checking outlets, checking flooring, making sure water is running and that kind of thing, which are all very important things to make sure are happening in our homes where our residents are dwelling. But it doesn't necessarily deal with the street view of these rental properties. In the city of Allegan, there are approximately 686 rental units. this does include the High Point units, is that correct? Okay,
I'm not sure either.
not sure on that, but
I don't,
according to the 2020 census, there are approximately 686 rental units in the city. So that's something to keep aware of. If this is something that the city of Allegan were to explore again, this would require us to contract with another service outside of PCI, because like I said, they don't offer this, or would require the city to hire somebody, a staff member, to oversee these inspections, which you're all aware, we're kind of at max right now with our city staffing here at City Hall. So something that can be considered and discussed as a council, but just aware of where we started, where we're at now, and what we're capable of. So.
and the only thing that I would add to that is we switched from MTS to PCI in 2016, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that, from what I recall, MTS was only technically doing what most would call like complaint inspections. I don't think they were running a full program the way that these programs should be run. Before that was when Ted Hansen was here as our building inspector, and I can't remember what year he left, but even at those points, I don't think it was on a full schedule, and I think a lot of it was just, you know, reactionary versus being proactive with the program. So, you know, that's just another piece of history from my mind, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Mike, I know this was something you were concerned about as well, and you've brought up a couple times, and you go through this process, correct, in other communities? Do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Sorry for neglecting to include you in that, Mike. I apologize. I blanked. I remember now that you spoke on that too, so I apologize.
Council have any thoughts, any direction we want staff to go in?
I'm always one that says if we've got ordinances, we should enforce them, right? So, and it seems that if we want this to be a community where people want to live, and hopefully we'll have more housing that people can do that, but we should make sure that they're habitable and safe. And
Thanks, Roger. Anyone else have anything to say?
In my trips around the community, there are homes that are rented out that should not be rented out. They have siding that's rotted. You can see through it, and people are living in there. It's not only there for their safety, but it's there for a community safety too. And to keep our community looking nice and everything else. It's for the residents, for the neighborhoods. They're there. They should be enforced. That's my feeling.
Thanks, Bill. Peter?
I would just need to get probably a better understanding of what the cost to run such a program would actually look like, whether we just find somebody and ask them what the cost of running that and what little offset of any fees we collect. I know the fees won't even cover the cost, but I need to kind of understand that before I would say go ahead with this, because I'm not looking to spend more money and I'd have to see the benefit. What are they gonna do? What are they providing? How often are they providing it? How does it work? Has it been beneficial in other communities? Those type of questions.
Sure. I guess preliminarily, and we will, explore those costs a little deeper. We were talking today about this in preparation. Do you recall, Michaela, what kind of the average or surrounding communities that use this program, how much those fees were?
I want to say it was $75, and then that cost is usually passed on to the tenant. So a lot of the time, it also makes housing less affordable for people in neighboring communities, is what we found.
Yeah. Those fees that are required for those annual inspections isn't typically something that a landlord is just going to eat on their own, they're gonna pass that fee on to their tenants. It's going to raise their cost of living in that aspect as well. So like Michaela was alluding to, it makes the housing in communities that go through these programs a little less affordable, because your rates are gonna go up because your landlords are gonna have to be paying more per unit as well. So that's something to consider. But yeah, we can explore.
Well, that's the fee for the owner to have it inspected, but what's
Correct.
the actual cost for the
City's cost.
city to do the inspection, or to hire the company to do the inspection? Because we've talked about that cost is not all included in that $75 fee, that fee usually doesn't cover that. And I think in our current ordinance, it's every 3 years, so
Yep.
those inspections are every 3.
Yeah, and I believe that Joel and I had looked into it with a company to outsource that. So I think we have a quote, so I can get that and we can try to bring that information back to you guys or get new quotes. If that's the direction that you want to give us.
I also see in the staff report that, so part of that change, PCI made it clear that they would not provide rental inspection services, but, I mean, what I'm hearing though is that even prior to PCI, there were challenges that the administration had in managing this program. It seems like, well, in the report, it says the council decided to suspend rental inspections. I'm curious what the drivers were behind that, because I feel like it's got to be more than just PCI said we won't do it, and so then it was dropped. I wonder if there are issues with the program or things that make the program non-viable or so challenging to manage that it had been dropping for years. I kind of want to know a little bit more about the reasoning behind the original decision to make sure we aren't bringing back something that's not feasible, I guess.
And I know that Rachel could probably speak on that, because she was on council when we had that program, and I recall a little bit of that too. I know it's very hard for, it was very hard for MTS to get into people's homes. And then the follow-up and the administrative nightmare of it all, it was more of on a complaint basis, and it was normally when the tenants were complaining about the landlord not fixing things that they thought should be fixed, is kind of where it ended up with MTS, and that was for several years. Like I said, when Ted Hansen left, he was doing them
Well,
more.
Like
but-
we've heard tonight, there are other communities that are managing these successfully. So there's got to be something about our program that might not be working. I don't know if there's revisions to the ordinance we need, or if there's a different way to manage it that we should be looking at.
Yeah, and I definitely think that. I just think that the previous building inspector and, MTS, it just wasn't what they wanted to do. I think MTS was more into the historic type things and, in the permits and the, what made them money. And, for time with the one that we had employed in-house. But I'm sure that if you hire and I can't remember the name of the company that Joel got the quote from a couple years ago, when we were switching to PCI, I remember we looked into it to see if we could add that piece on with somebody else, and then it was just really expensive, is what I recall, for how much we actually had the follow-through and the follow-up and the actual, for it to work right. But it's gonna cost the city to get somebody to do it the correct way.
I agree with Peter. If we could get some sort of quote about,
Yep.
What this service would cost, what we paid Mr. Hansen when he was here, if that's feasible, or even whether or not this is a program that's viable, as Dave said. Tony, were you raising your hand?
Tracy, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. City of Buffalo's going through the same thing right now, and they are working with Nick, who's also your attorney. First ordinance was just read, they're dealing with safe build on pricing.
That was the
So I
company.
will get Tracy with the finance director down there, and she can get you guys taken care of.
Thanks, Tony. I knew it started with an S. We looked for him at the MML conference, and they didn't have a booth there, so we weren't able to touch base with them. Jay?
I think this kind of marries with the blight that we deal with. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say areas or anything like that, but I send the reports on what is done, and, you know, just this last week, a couple dumpsters that were around town that have been where they were for too long, they're gone now. And there's some places that I'm sure Bill has seen that we get them to the point where they're cleaned up, and I just went by one today, and it's back to where it was, and we've, what's that? Oh, that's a different one, but we've tried to be proactive, right? So we have a dumpster at city, or at DPW full-time now. And in internal discussions, we're like, well, why do we want to put a dumpster full-time at DPW and pay for that? And I'm like, well, what's the end goal? The end goal is to have it cleaned up. And so we made coupons. Tony hands them the coupon, they can take their stuff to the DPW and get cleaned up. We do have issues with, as I said, that recidivism. They get cleaned up for a little bit, and then I'll drive by and I'm like, what happened? You know, I was so proud, you know. So, I mean, we're constantly looking at it, and Tony, but the problem is you end up noticing the things that are still there or that return, right, as opposed to the, you know, I think he had like 75% success rate on getting certain things cleaned up, but we still have, we just sent out 8 to 10 notices that probably next week we're going to be looking at the abatement piece, and it is what it is. You know, you can't just keep kicking the can down the road. At some point, abatement does have to happen, but abatement is expensive. We did one in the general area of the hospital last year, and it was like $2,000. I mean, there was a lot of stuff, and just we're not getting compliance. And then obviously, yes, you put that on the tax bill. We let City Hall know this abatement's been done. This needs to go on the tax rolls, but you know, there's a lot up front that the city pays for that you're not getting the return. So yeah, even from the blight that we do, I mean, there's some stuff in the ordinances that we need to get in front of council to change, because on the blight notices, it says that they have the ability to appeal, and it says, and I don't remember this ever being, and I'm not completely 100% familiar with all of our ordinances, but it says that they have the right to come before city council for an appeal, and I always thought it was before city manager, so that's something that we have to have the discussion. Okay, is that gonna be a part of the process where we're gonna wait for a council? We've already done our 10 days, now we'll wait for council 2 weeks from then. You know what I mean? So there are some things to be cleaned up, but there's a desire, City Hall, and my department knows that that's a priority of council and a priority of ours. And we work on it every week. It's, you know, some things aren't as quick, you know, they'll do a little bit. And we tell them, as long as you're making progress. Well, the way my progress is compared to somebody else, a lot of times is completely different. Like, I would be, if I got a notice, I'd be like, okay, you're gonna help provide resources? Yes. All you gotta do is get it there. I would be trying to do it as soon as possible. And we do see it. I mean, you know, a couple of those dumpsters that we'd gotten calls on, they're gone now. Yards tore up, but that's another issue.
Thanks, Jay. I will say, just on the topic of ordinances, Michaela and Joel attended a breakout at MML about ordinance writing, and we had some conversation. Could one of you make a note to put that on study session for
Yep, I'll make a note of
next
that.
meeting? We had discussed getting a group together to go chapter by chapter with the ordinances and take a review of those, because I agree with you, Roger, these are on the books, they need to be enforced. We've just got to clean that up.
Or if it's not feasible,
Right,
let's
get
be
rid of it.
involved. Yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Anything else regarding this? No? Is everyone happy with that direction for staff, just to kind of look into costs associated with the program? Yeah? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have a discussion regarding the City of Allegan fee schedule. Staff?
I'm gonna kick this right off to Tracy.
So we are bringing this before you so that you guys have a chance to review it outside of the budget document, because it seems to get buried in the budget document, and then it always seems like it comes back like we want to change this fee, or we forgot this one. So we're bringing it to you now so that you guys can review it separate, so you can, you know, kind of just look at it. It's pretty much just, right now it's for your information. We've gone over it with all of our department heads. They've put in their proposed new rates. So with that, I mean, if you I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at them, if you have any questions on anything in particular, so that we can get them corrected before I get it in the budget document.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us have this ahead of time. That's really helpful. I did take a look through it. I made a couple notes, and I see Doug is here. Doug, I noticed that sewer, RTS, and commodity still have that 1.5% increase, but water does not, is that correct? The water rate, okay.
With the money we're getting from the state for lead services, we went through our rate-making program. We feel that the water side is not requiring a 1.5% increase this year. Sewer side, because we're losing revenue from industrial waste not coming into us anymore. We still need to do the 1.5% increase. And the money for lead services doesn't affect the sewer side.
Okay, thank you. And I did see that there was an increase also in septage rates.
Yep,
Okay.
we kept the same increase from last year, follow that through on this year to increase it. Our plan on that is kind of just keep increasing that same increment amount each year and keep going from there.
Awesome, thank you. I see that the city's adding some passport services. Is that something new?
So that's something that, when Joel came here, he suggested we look into. With COVID, we looked into it. We hit some roadblocks and got no return phone calls when we were gonna do it. So it's something I'd like to, if we can get a hold of someone to set that up here, we'd like to provide that service. So I didn't take it out yet, but it's been hard for us to get a hold of anybody to get set up with everything in there, so.
I checked with the county, and that $35 is the fee that the Register of Deeds charges too, so that's very comparable.
Okay.
Did anybody else have anything that they saw? Peter?
A couple things. I think the 35 is by statute or by federal, but the Griswold, I know we're changing some of the rentals on that to split up weekdays and weekends and add on some, if you're using multiple parts of the Griswold, I see. And then at the airport advisory, we had discussed in the past some of our hangar fees, and that we're probably gonna be going out again and looking at neighboring airports was brought up at the last meeting to make sure we're still comparable. So that because there's no change on it this year, but may see something come from airport in the future on that.
Yeah, I thought I saw an increase in hangar rent, like a slight increase, maybe not?
No, I don't think in hangar, I think,
Something that was increased.
The main hangar,
for the airport, what?
terminal hangar.
Oh, the terminal hangar.
Yeah.
The only
Okay,
one.
I thought I saw something that
Yep,
increased
yep.
in airport.
And I couldn't remember which one it was, and we did discuss that, but, we were gonna wait for it to come from the board to put the change in
And
there.
it has been brought up at, I think, the last meeting or last two meetings that we gotta probably go out and look again. Because we had adjusted those a couple years ago to be more competitive, and it has been successful on filling all the hangars, that they are all full. Now it's just trying to make sure we're not undercutting.
Doug K., quick question for you. I noticed like cemetery all stayed the same. We do fine as far as like staff time.
What we're looking to do with the cemetery rates is very much what we're gonna do with the airport rates, compare them to neighboring air, units, and then see where we stand. Yep.
Anybody else notice anything?
Just that we still have conversations that we need to have before this gets finalized for this year, but I don't think anything about what's existing right now.
Did I miss the Riverfront stage in here somewhere? I know the Riverfront Park is on here. Were we doing the stage separate?
Do you recall on that, Parker?
I believe when calling it the Riverfront Park, it's the stage and that grass area and then the brick paver area before the turnaround drive.
Okay.
Is what is a rentable space of the Riverfront Park.
Okay.
So that stage should be included in that rental.
Okay, in the Riverfront Park half-day
Correct,
fee?
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
And as Roger and Tracy both noted, we'll see these again because they are wrapped up in the budget approval process. So if there's anything between now and then, just get a hold of staff with any questions. Yeah? Okay. If there's nothing more on that, we'll go ahead and move down to the review of February fiscal year 2022 year-to-date revenue and expenditure report.
And with that, it's just the report that I get you guys every month showing where we're at as of, I ran this report as of March 24th, so any invoices entered in or money received as of March 24th for February is in this report.
Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate getting that to kind of know where we're at. It's a nice snapshot. Did anyone have any questions or concerns? No? Okay. Next, we have a review of our council agenda. Council, did you see anything that needed addition or correction with our agenda for the regular meeting tonight? Staff, anything that you guys needed amended or anything? Okay. All right, well, it is 6:31, so if there's nothing further, I'll go ahead and adjourn study session, and we will reconvene at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting. Thank you. I'm going to call the regular meeting for the Allegan City Council to order. Michaela, could we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Zeter. Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Councilmember Hands. Councilmember Redding.
Here.
Councilmember Morgan. Mayor Pro Tem Galloway.
Here.
And Mayor Andrus.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 3, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise and join me in stating the pledge. Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 4, which is an approval of the agenda. Under 4A, we have approval of the regular council meeting agenda for March 28th, 2022. We did discuss this at study session and had no additions or corrections. So could I please get a motion to approve?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under agenda item 5, which is an approval of minutes, we have 5A, which is an approval of the study session minutes from our March 14th, 2022 council meeting. Council, did you see any additions or corrections to the study session minutes? Staff, did you receive any notification? No? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under 5B, we have an approval of the regular meeting minutes from March 14th. Same question I'm going to pose to everyone. Any additions or corrections to the minutes from the regular meeting? No? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 5C, which is an approval of the special meeting minutes from March 23rd, 2022. Looks like Michaela's coming around with our minutes. So council, once you receive those, please take a moment to review. Anybody have any additions or corrections to the closed session minutes from March 23rd? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Michaela will come back and pick these up for us.
We're working on it. We're waiting on Mike.
There's the other 4. Awesome, thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 6, which is special presentations and recognitions by the mayor or council. Under 6A, we have an Arbor Day proclamation from the mayor. Parker, do you want to give us a little information?
Sure. Each year, the city of Allegan recognizes and celebrates Arbor Day. As you are about to do, Mayor, we have a proclamation that is read each year before the holiday. And then in conjunction, as part of recognition for this holiday, in order to maintain the city's status as Tree City USA, is planting a tree for Arbor Day as well. The Department of Public Works has earmarked the Riverfront Park for the placement of this year's tree. The placement and the species of tree was approved at the last Public Spaces Commission meeting. It is a marmo maple. It will be planted if you kind of place yourself there on the riverfront, you can kind of tell where our art sculpture is there in the middle. There's that plant bed, and then there's another next to it that's a little bit closer to the riverfront restrooms there. That plant bed is currently just home to some ground cover. So we identified that as a spot to plant this marble maple tree. And it's going to start out as a 4-inch tree, and in due time it will grow, and hopefully it's intended to provide some shade cover for those enjoying the riverfront and currently sit in the sunshine. So there'll be a little shady spot there. So.
Thank you, Parker. And I will now go ahead and read our Arbor Day proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the city of Allegan has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for the past 36 years and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, I, Delora Andrus, Mayor of the City of Allegan, do hereby proclaim the last Friday in the month of April as Arbor Day in the City of Allegan, and I urge all citizens to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden their hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. Thank you.
Pardon me. Thank you. So with that, that last Friday in April, April 29th, the planting of that tree on the Riverfront Park will take place at 10 a.m. So if any of you can join, please do. It's an annual tradition, and so we're hoping to have a good turnout again this year.
I just wanted to clarify, I saw your hand motion to indicate it's 4 inches around
Yes.
versus 4 inches tall.
Correct.
Okay. all right.
Yes, sorry. 4 inches in diameter.
Yeah, okay,
Not sure on the exact height there.
sure.
That would be a tiny, tiny tree.
It would be.
Okay, next up we have public comment. So this is agenda item number 9. This is a time for the public to approach the podium, state your name and address. Because we have a really busy agenda tonight, we'll limit you to 3 minutes for that. And this is for items not on tonight's agenda. So if there is any public comment this evening, I'll invite you on up to the podium. Tessa, come on up.
I am Tessa Thomas. I live at 321 Grant Street. I'm speaking on for-profit versus nonprofit entities concerning city facilities. A nonprofit organization or entity survive from donations of those who patronize them, providing said entity is a 501c3. Those donations are tax deductible. They are a not-for-profit entity. They seek no wealth. A nonprofit organization provides a service solely for the benefit of their patrons and nothing more, except for maybe the satisfaction of providing the service. If their service is poor quality or no longer needed, they will go away. A for-profit entity is just that. They must make a profit in order to make a living. In their endeavor or take a loss, they exist to accumulate wealth. Though they do provide a service, said service is provided for profit. Provided their service is of acceptable level, they will continue in business. If it is poor, they will fail and disappear. Knowing cities do provide facilities for use by public, sometimes at a fee, I see no reason for a city to charge a nonprofit organization the entire fee or possibly provide it at no fee depending on the facility. Providing a facility to a for-profit entity is different, as that entity is using said facility in order to make a profit in some way, shape, form, or manner. A for-profit entity is just that, providing their service for a profit. Thank you very much. Respectfully submitted by me.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment this evening? Seeing no further public comment, we will move down the agenda to agenda item number 10, which is written petitions and reports from special committees. Under 10A, we have a request from the Allegan chapter of the Kalamazoo Folklife Organization. Parker?
Yes, so included in your packet were two requests from the Allegan chapter of the Kalamazoo Folklife Organization. If you recall, at your last council meeting, we had been brought forth a request for a variance for use of the Riverfront stage by Tantric Brewing Company. Their request required a variance because as our rental form is laid out now, that stage cannot be used in conjunction with the Mahan Park gazebo and vice versa. So, like I said, Tantric has had a request in for their birthday party event to take place on the same Saturday that a Good Times at the Gazebo performance takes place. That variance was granted at the last meeting to have both of those events be held at the same time. Both representatives from Tantric Brewing Company and from Good Times at the Gazebo were at that meeting, and both spoke in favor of the grant, or the variance being granted. After that time, last week, we received two letters addressed to Joel asking that these topics be brought forth to the city council. The first letter that was included in your packet from Leah Ward, who's sitting in the audience, was asking to have a discussion be held on the fees of Mahan Park and the request to reserve the dates for the upcoming, this next year's Good Times at the Gazebo in 2023. So, Mayor, I guess I want to know, do we want to take, there's two letters, like I said, including your packet, so do we want to discuss this first letter and then move on to the second, or we can do both at the same time? That's up to council's discretion.
Yeah, I would prefer to discuss each letter separately.
Okay.
So how about we start with the request about parking, which is concerning the same, or the Tantric date, and
Yeah.
that July 30th?
30th, yep, so that's that second letter.
Second letter
Yep.
in our packet. So, Leah, I'm going to go ahead and invite you on up. I understand that there are several people here regarding this agenda item. Typically, we do not take public comment on items above agenda item number 11 unless it's under a public comment. So, Leah, I'll let you just kind of explain your request, and we will discuss that.
Okay. My request is I've got some concerns for seniors. We've never had Good Times at the Gazebo when there's been another event of any kind. Tantric is expecting 500 up people to attend this. Their concert will be starting before my concert. I think we can work with them as we discussed last year, but the problem is I want to make sure that I have parking for my seniors. I've got people that are in walkers, wheelchairs. Jessie brings her little boy in a wheelchair. Canes, they have a lot of difficulty walking, and we just want to make sure that the parking is adequate, that all the parking isn't taken up, and we're left with parking way down the street somewhere. That's just basically my concern. You know, I've got to consider these people. It's kindness and it's goodness, and it's concern. And I think we owe them that. We had originally planned on shuttling our people by car, the ones that could not go to walk that far to the bathroom, for one thing. And we just don't want to have to make them have any kind of an inconvenience. I saw a man yesterday or last year that could not walk. And so our concern is that we get them parked safely in a venue that's safe, and close by, and that we don't have to compete with another event.
Thanks, Leah. Council, is there any questions at all for Parker, who reported on this, or for Leah regarding the parking?
I think
Peter?
the only thing I would think of is on Brady Street, I think we have like 2 handicap, if we wanted to temporarily make additional spots handicap to allow for close access to Mahan Park on Brady Street there. I know I've looked at it, there's other private lots near there, but those are private lots and they'll have to work out that between them and who owns those lots. I think 102 Brady and Perigo own 2 lots near there, but I would consider just asking for maybe some temporary handicap would sound reasonable to me. That's near Mahan, some of those parallel spots or some of the spots across, I think would help.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Roger, did you have anything?
Just as I look through the requests, I mean, I think I don't think it would take much for us to block off some of the parking on Brady Street to ensure that there's some close by parking, and I think it's totally reasonable for that, the parking space down by the the parking area down by the gazebo. Of course, there's people that live down there, but we could probably allow some restricted stuff early in the day just to make sure that there's some spots open there and so the band can get in and out. My concern was, where'd it go now? The ask about the parking spaces behind the Iron Bridge and Sherwood's Cove. I think some of that's city, but a lot of that's private, and we don't have any control over those.
Yeah, so in this request, there was an ask for parking to be reserved along Brady Street, like you said, Roger, along Sherwood's Cove and behind the former Iron Bridge Sports Bar building, as well as, I believe, parking leading down toward the riverfront there. That parking along Sherwood's Cove, along the former Iron Bridge building, those are private parking spaces that are owned by those property owners, so we don't have control over those. We maintain those spots when we are doing snow removal, but they're not owned by the city.
Mm-hmm.
And same with those parking spaces that are on a very inconvenient slat down the hill there. Those are also privately owned by that property owner that those abut to. That parking there at the bottom of that hill are owned by the city. I would keep in mind that, like you mentioned, the band for the gazebo needs space to unload. The band that will be playing at the stage will need space to unload, and there is business located down there as well, the Scooped Ice Cream that will need parking in its vicinity. I think that it's fair to say that the parking on Brady Street, like you mentioned, Peter, is very doable to provide some temporary spaces. I will say that it's not past practice. We haven't done, not just for Good Times at the Gazebo, but for other park rentals that we've had in the past, a number of events, the Ugly Sweater 5K, the Allegan Community Credit Union Block Party, the Kavanaugh Scholarship event are the first few that come to my mind that we have not granted any reserved parking for, but it's not something that is not doable. Those other groups, other businesses, a good example is right outside that door, there's a nice purple dumpster. The second floor next door is being renovated, and with that comes the removal of a lot of things upstairs. So they is just the one example that comes to my mind. There's another, the building on Locust Street that's having their roof redone, and they've reserved a few parking spaces directly behind the building in the parking lot here. Any of those reservations of parking spots, in those instances, do come with a fee. It's a $25 fee to block off any parking spaces, as our rules are currently written. Obviously, as we do, we have requests come forth, and those can be granted variance, but just so you know, past practice.
Thanks, Parker. Dave, did you have something?
Yeah, well, I'm curious what staff's proposal would be to manage this request in this situation.
Our proposal would be, like Leah mentioned, I think it would behoove city staff and city council to make sure that it is easiest for our residents, those that are coming to spend time and enjoy our Allegan Riverfront, to make it most convenient as we are capable of doing. Obviously, there are some asks in this letter, like I said, that are a bit out of our control with some of those parking spots that are not owned by the city. But I do think that those that are within our purview of control, that we can make specific.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the mechanisms of how you'd manage it. Like, would it be
sure.
as simple as blocking off as handicapped, or would there have to be like a pass that would be created that Leah would be able to give out to?
Sure.
her
So, again, we'll use the example of dumpster locations. Again, this is not the only one. It's just the example that's right in front of my face. So I'm referencing that. But trying to think of another good example. Sure. Okay, so when we were redoing our Cutler Street parking lot, Country House Furniture has a loading dock in the back where they receive shipments on a weekly basis. While it was all torn up, that couldn't be done. So working with the Department of Public Works staff, we were able to block off a few of those spaces right in front of their store with city traffic cones. We dropped those off. It was up to the business, in this case, it would be up to the organizer, to then block off those spaces as agreed upon between the DPW or city staff and the organizer. And then it would be their responsibility to make sure that those are blocked off in advance and then coordinated in that aspect. Would be at least my recommendation. Doug can chime in and correct me if otherwise, but that's how it's been done. Like I said, the example for Country House Furniture.
So that kind of brings up a good point, a question for Leah. How many parking spaces do you feel like we need to have reserved?
Hard to tell you. We normally get anywhere from 175 to 200 people. Not all of them need special parking,
Right,
but there are a certain few of them that do.
so
And
10
some
or?
of them can walk from a further distance.
Mhm.
I see a lot of them coming, like from the bridge, that direction this way. I don't know where they've parked, but we just want to take care of those.
Sure.
So I appreciate anything you guys can do. I mean, that's really important to people.
Yeah, that's
It
helpful.
shows you care, so.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and I think Leah makes a good point for consideration, is that the ask is not for all 200 attendees of Good Times at the Gazebo. It's for those few who are not able-bodied. It's not often, but it does happen that we will have a very busy downtown. There are times where multiple events do happen at one time, and it is difficult to find parking. Parking isn't always going to be absolutely convenient. And it's good to have a busy downtown. It's good to have those instances similar when any of us visit another neighboring town, a lakeshore town, for example, Saugatuck, and you're driving around the block trying to find a parking spot. It's a healthy downtown. That means there's people there spending time, enjoying their amenities, hopefully shopping and dining as well. So it's a good problem to have, I will say.
Doug, did you want to make any comment about this request?
I think Parker handled it quite well.
Okay. Okay. So I don't see a problem perhaps blocking off that parallel parking there at Brady Street. Not closing the road, but just putting up cones or some other deterrent until, I mean, Leah, once you get the band down there, would you then just kind of monitor that for people, or how?
We will.
Okay.
And, if I see like another van coming in that needs to get down there, absolutely, I'm gonna work with that.
Okay.
How many parallel spots are there along that Riverside of Brady? Any idea?
5 or 6 maybe, right?
I think
Only that?
between
Only that
the driveway and the end of the block, I would wager maybe 10.
Yeah.
And then
that's not-
that next block before the driveway to the intersection, I think, like Teresa said, maybe 5 or 6.
So we could,
All of them.
No, there's 9 on State Street, and I'm not sure on Brady, it's probably like 5, 6. Like I said, it's
Oh, State Street.
State Street. There's already 2 handicap on State Street and a couple on Brady,
But, okay.
but
Around the corner there.
around, the 'cause
Okay,
State
yep.
Street's around the corner from Brady, right? That's what we're talking,
Yes.
2nd Street, State Street?
Yep.
Well, yeah, we were talking Brady Street.
Well, we're
That's
talking
okay.
Brady, but he said
Yeah.
around the corner.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a motion to block off any parking? Is that something that council would like to move forward with?
I'd make a motion that city staff works with Good Times at the Gazebo to assist in having spots available for the handicap and needy people that need to be able to traverse. So they can determine with Kalamazoo, Folk Life, what would be required there. I don't have to specify exactly how many spots.
Would it be helpful to do that, though? To say 12 spots or 10 spots or something, just so city staff has some direction, or?
The riverside of Brady Street?
Yeah, and I think what we can do, I'm pretty sure it'll be Leah and I that will communicate, and what we can do is look over an overhead
Okay.
view of some parking spaces along that street and determine how many both groups think is needed for this kind of ask.
Okay.
One other question I had was, is anybody in contact with, what is it, 101 or 102?
101 is the lot there on the corner. Yeah.
And to allow them to at least contact that owner to see if they're open to letting them use it as well?
Yes, I believe, and Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Joel shared, or yes, will
Share the
share
contact, okay.
Leah's contact information with the owners of that property.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor right now.
I second the motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion, council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. So Leah, you and Parker will just determine, okay, thank you. Okay, so the next request is regarding the 2023 Good Times at the Gazebo.
Yeah, so this, like you said, this is not for this upcoming year. The 2022 schedule was approved by city council sometime in the fall. I don't know that exact meeting date, but fall time. This is an ask for next year's event series in 2023. When discussing this at staff level, the first concern that we had was the fact that this council is currently in the midst of discussion regarding usage and rates of our parks. I don't want to get into a place where we're putting one step forward and kind of tripping over ourselves by approving a request for something that's happening more than a year out when we're discussing how we're going to reformat our current park usage intended for the better, to make it a little bit easier and more accessible for groups such as the Allegan chapter of the KZoo Folk Life. So that's city staff's recommendation. Obviously, we want you guys to discuss that, but we're just, feeling that we're at a point where this is an early ask for where we are at as a council and a staff working on those fees.
Thank you, Parker. And I will say that I completely agree with that assessment. This is an ongoing conversation that we hope to have shored up prior to adopting our budget. So at this point, in my mind, I would prefer to table this request until after that policy has been put into place. Is there any questions for staff from council?
That was my feeling as well. You and I discussed it, and I agree. I think it's we have to figure out what our policies are before we go into 2023.
Being that they're thinking ahead, is it something that we could grant to them depending on where we come up with, they have first right of refusal? And then I just hate to put somebody off that's looking to do something.
My thought would be to table it until after we've made a decision, perhaps bring that back when our 2023 budget goes into effect and, we approve in May, so late June or July.
I think, sorry, I just want to interject real quick. I think it's fairly safe to assume this is now, how many years for Good Times at the Gazebo? 30-some, yeah. I think we're coming into 33 years. It's a long-standing tradition that Good Times at the Gazebo takes place at Mayhem Park on Saturday nights, July through August. Since the Allegan chapter of the KZoo Folk Life took over organization of the event in 2020, The city took it over from the Rotary Club in 2018 and 2019, and then passed that baton to the Allegan chapter, who controls it now. This upcoming year will be the third year that the city has granted this request to this specific organization. Again, 30 years of precedent pretty much says Saturday nights belong to Good Times at the Gazebo, and now a tantric birthday party. But I understand what they're trying to do is be on top of it, get ahead of it. I know that the group is very busy and diligent working on other events throughout the year, and so they want to get this ask in ahead of time. But if what the council is trying to do is make it easier for groups such as this, that we, like has been said, hold off and have that plan solidified our rates and usage.
Thanks, Parker. Dave, did you have something to add?
That all makes sense. I guess my question was going to be, do we have a policy on when reservations open up for public spaces?
So in the past, and I don't know that I don't recall it being for this ask specifically, but I know that we have had asks come in for park usage and further out than a year, and we've told organizations no. Again, I don't know that it's been this ask before, but other groups we have told they cannot reserve more than a year in advance.
Okay.
I saw Peter as well.
Yeah, I would be open to accepting a schedule, tentative on us establishing our policy, and table this until no later than July for if there's any fee to be assessed or not.
Are you making a motion, Peter?
I'd make a motion to accept the schedule and adopt, tentative on the adoption of our budget no later than July 2022.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Council, is there any further discussion? So just to repeat, there will be an approval for the dates, but as far as the ask for a waiver of fees, that's tabled until July at the latest, but after the budget is approved. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Understood.
okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, next we have agenda item number 11, which is the reports from boards, commissions, and city offices. Under 11A, city boards, commissions, and area agencies, we have 11A.1, which is a Riverfront Design Committee March meeting update. Bill?
Most of the council got, I shouldn't say most, all the council got Doug's information that we went through, and what that plan you saw was basic wish list of everything that everybody wanted. We know that not everything's gonna be accepted, not for $15 million anyways. One of the things, looking through that and talking through that, we were talking about the dredging, using that for the fill. If it meets this qualifications of tolerance levels of the pollution standards, then they could reuse that. That is the biggest amount of money involved in this park situation. Other than that, you saw what's on there. It's a lot of good things. So, and like I said, it's just it's a blueprint of what we want, not what we're going to get. That's all I have.
Thank you. And thanks for getting that around, Doug. That was really helpful to see. So thanks, Michaela, for forwarding that. Next up on the agenda, we have agenda item 11A.2, which is a Planning Commission March meeting update. I will go ahead and provide that. So in front of Planning Commission was a site plan review and a special use permit application for MRK Development LLC for a marijuana grow facility in the industrial park. The Planning Commission did approve the site plan and recommended that the special use permit come up to council as long as all of the conditions that were outlined were met. And staff had sent forward what those conditions were. We did receive comment from both the applicant and some representatives, as well as from some representatives of Payroll. I see that we have groups both here again this evening. So that special use permit will come up later in our agenda. And then we also discussed accessory dwelling units. Right now, the ordinance that we have in place is a little bit, to use one of Joel's words, hinky. So that's something that will be looked at forthcoming to make it a little bit easier for anyone who's applying and for planning to approve. So moving on down the agenda, we've got 11A.3, which is a report from the Historic District Commission, March meeting. Dave?
Sure. So the HDC met on a Thursday this time we reviewed 6 applications, tabled portions of one, but otherwise approved all of them. And then there was a motion. I want to be careful with reading it. So the commission discussed the Historic District Study Committee and agreed to take on this work and create a study session that will take place immediately following each regular Historic District Study Committee meeting. So I think there's like an extra study in there. But once then that's kind of what's taken place. So, yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Dave. Next, we have 11B, which is our Finance Department. Under 11B.1, we have a request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Teresa?
We have accounts payable in the amount of $147,607.61. Payroll in the amount of $109,995.18 for a total disbursement of $257,602.79. I make a motion to approve.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11E, which is our Public Works Department. Under 11E.1, we have a request to approve a purchase order from Westonbrook Equipment in the amount of $18,110.57 for 2 zero-turn mowers. Doug, I'll invite you on up.
Thank you. As you note in the memo, this DPW has 3 zero-turn mowers that we use for parks, parks, water and sewer lift stations. We replaced one a year ago, and in 2023 budget, we're proposing replacing the other 2. But in dealing with contractors and vendors, we made some calls. What we found out is Westonbrook Mowers has 2 available now. And other agencies, or other vendors have 1 available at a much higher price, and a third vendor has none available. So speaking with the finance department, we suggest that we replace the other 2 while those are still available. Vendors are saying that if they can get them, it's a big if, and the prices are gonna go up higher. And these are commercial grade mowers.
Thank you, Doug. Parker or Michaela, Tracy, did you have anything to add?
Nothing from us.
Okay. Is this included in this year's budget, or is this a budget adjustment?
So we had it in what we were gonna propose in this upcoming budget, but because of the issues that he just described, we decided to move them up, and then we'll have to do a budget adjustment for this current year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council?
I think this is the world we live in currently, that you gotta get it while you can get it.
We get it while we can. They said they hold it till tomorrow.
No pressure.
Been like last minute, Doug. Could I get a motion then to approve the purchase order for Westonbrook Equipment?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11E.2, which is an adoption of Resolution 2212 to approve a grant application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources to make various improvements to Rossman Park.
Yeah, so real quick, before you is this ask to approve to adopt this resolution. Marsh is applying for this grant on the city's behalf. It is a DNR grant. If there are questions, Tony's here for this item as well, and Doug can answer questions as well, probably both of them better than I can. However, I do want to point out that Teresa knows, and hopefully others recall, the Public Spaces Commission, when developing their list of priorities last fall, listed Rossman Park as one of the higher ranking parks that they wanted to see some improvements made to. For those not familiar, Rossman Park, or Rossman Esplanade, as it is referred to officially, is located on Marshall Street. That's an overhead view there. It's a 4-quadrant park. In that quadrant to the right is the pickleball courts. The quadrant south of that is the labyrinth. And then the other two toward the west are park space. They have some trees, a couple of picnic tables between the two of them. It's a very nice little park there that often gets overlooked because it's on a busier street. But the Public Spaces Commission has identified that as being a park that they want to see some improvements made to, like I said. So that is why we are applying for the grant that will be on behalf of this park. So.
Thank you, Parker. Doug or Tony, did you have anything to add? No? Okay. I see it's a 25% match.
Total project cost is, total project cost is $149,400. The city's match on it would be $37,400. You'll get some new handicap parking spots there. They're dedicated, which you don't have now. Redo the pickleball courts, new benches, 4 new outdoor game areas, new water fountain, some new walks. So really enhance that park area there, make it really nice.
Thanks, Tony.
So, just the resurfacing or the redoing, what's the word? Rehabilitating of the pickleball courts, what is that gonna entail? Is that
We
gonna,
seal up all the cracks and stuff on, there's a new surface that goes over and gets
so
everything
they will be
restriped,
completely
yes.
resurfaced and everything? Oh, good, that's great.
Peter, did you have something?
Yeah, are we addressing some of the trees in that quadrant there? Because I know they're quite close together in that park that's gonna have the ADA parking, and I've walked that park a couple times. It's overcrowded in the trees and may need some adjustment.
Yes, when we get the final design, we are gonna wanna work with the city staff and any interested stakeholders and where we put certain elements of trees we wanna save and ones that maybe have lived past their life expectancy and it's time to move. So when we get to final design, we will coordinate some of that.
There's a lot of branch fall in that
Yeah,
park.
exactly.
Teresa?
It did say in here about drinking fountains, but I know we've discussed in public spaces meetings about having water, running water out there for the labyrinth too, for the plantings and stuff.
The
Would there?
drip irrigations.
Yeah, would that be something that could be worked into there?
We could, it wouldn't be part of the
Since
grant
there'd be water
application,
there
but yeah, we
already.
could work that in when we get closer, we get the grant, work that into the contract as a non-participating item with the grant. That is something we could work with Doug and his staff and figure out what it would take to do.
How we could, okay, all
And
right.
the drip irrigation line may be something that has to be addressed at an upcoming public spaces meeting. I know it's, like you said, it's been talked about quite a bit. And at the first mention of that to our DPW senior staff, there was quite a bit of concern regarding that type of system.
We generally don't like to see drip irrigations and commercial, they're a cost-saving benefit, and sometimes budget just requires it. But with time, they just don't function as well,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yep, and I was even just thinking maybe some running water out there of some sort that they can use to water.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. And Councilmember Redding, to your comment on questions, I just want to bring up, because I didn't see her, Doug is absolutely fantastic when he sees MDOT grants, sends them to us and says, what do we got, we can apply for this. So he's really, really, I didn't say that earlier, and I walked over, I'm like, I should have said that, because he's so good at it. So, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tony. And thanks, Doug. Did anyone in the public have any thoughts about this? I personally feel that Rossman Park is long overdue for some enhancement, so, okay. Could I get a motion then to adopt Resolution 22.12 to approve the grant application?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. Council, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11E.3, which is a request to approve a purchase order from American Ramp Company in the amount of $30,000 to repair structural issues at the JayCee Park Skate Park. Doug?
Thank you. City DPW staff did an inspection on the skate park a year ago. We found some deficiencies, we found some unsafe conditions. There's some concrete pieces broken off, there's some steel that was ripped back, and we felt it was unsafe. We contacted the installer of the company, installer of the product. They said there's a 15-year warranty on it. I'll get it right. A 15-year warranty on it, but they estimate the repairs to be $60,000. They'll cover half and we'll cover half, so our share is the $30,000 that we're asking for. And if we approve it tonight, the ARC company said that they can put it on their schedule to be done yet this summer, weather permitting.
Thanks, Doug. Any questions regarding this?
This is another element of another park that your Public Spaces Commission identified as being something that was a top priority, mostly because of its safety concern, but also because of its benefit to the youth in town that enjoy that and get a lot of good use out of that space. So this, along with the previous approval, we're checking a couple of boxes for the Public Spaces Commission that'll really please that group, so.
Thanks, Parker. Doug, just one question. Didn't DPW staff do some repair work last?
We did some
summer?
minor repairs on it a year ago, but in looking at it, the repairs that we did lasted through the fall. Once the winter came, it just spalled again and broke off what we placed in there.
Go ahead, Roger.
I remember us having this conversation, and I think, Doug, you made the comment, like, if we don't put the effort and the money into it, that we're gonna lose it, and we have to keep up on our investments, so.
Yeah.
I think this is the time we're gonna do that.
I agree, we need to do it, but I'm wondering where the funds would come from for this.
Tracy, can you speak to that?
Pretty much like the mowers, we were planning for it for 2023. So there would be money there, and I'll just have to do a budget adjustment to do it earlier.
But that may depend on the timeline when the contractor comes in and does the work, correct? If it's June or July, we may not get billed for it until next fiscal year.
Right.
And it's an expense to us when the work is completed, not when we get a bill, but either way, timing.
And so just to clarify, that's okay, Mayor. So you want to do this year because an extra year and an extra winter is going to deteriorate the skate park even more? Is that the idea, that's why we want to get it done this year?
Yes.
Rather than waiting? Okay, just so.
And we don't want to
Say that
lose
out
the
loud.
50/50 with the warranty.
Oh, is this the last year of our warranty?
No, the bid, I don't know what date it was installed, but I saw a bid receipt date of 2009, so I presume it was like 2009, 2010 installed. So it'd be 15 years from that completion date.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions, council? If there are no further questions, could I get a motion to approve the purchase order for American Ramp Company?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have 11F, which is City Manager and City Clerk. Under 11F.1, we have a request to approve the special use permit for a marijuana growing facility at 845 Industrial Drive. As I mentioned in my Planning Commission report, this was approved by the Planning Commission as long as the conditions are met that have been outlined, the site plan review that is, and then they did recommend that this come up to council for the special use. Parker, do you have anything else to add?
I do not, and I'm glad you kind of took the wheel on that one as you were at the meeting. I think you, Mayor, can speak to this with a lot more knowledge than I can. I've been kind of on the outskirts of this discussion, so I think you summed it up nicely. Like you said, it's been approved by the Planning Commission, and now it's been bumped up to this level, so.
Council, are there any questions? Okay, I know we do have representatives here from the applicant. Is there anything that you would like to add or present on?
I had one question. So one of the potential conditions listed in the PCI report was City of Allegan staff performing like an assessment, like an engineering assessment and approvals. Do we know if that's happened yet?
My understanding is that there were certain aspects of this application and in the conditions that would be addressed when building permits were pulled. I know that we all did get the waste plan. I don't know if everybody had an opportunity to review that, but that was emailed also to us earlier. So that was one of the other conditions was to get.
Okay, but no engineering assessment that we know of at this time?
Not yet. We're just kind of letting things roll in until we get to that point.
Okay.
Any other questions, Council?
That email that we got at like 2:00 this afternoon,
Yeah, with the waste plan, waste removal plan.
it's got really a chance to read.
I think we
Did they,
just,
I know my biggest concern is Payroll, and I understood that they had some questions, and rightfully so, for the largest employer here. I think some of those should be addressed. Have all that been taken care of?
so we do have some representatives from Payroll here. So I will go ahead and first open up for the applicant to make any comments that you would like. And then we'll open that up to Bill, okay?
Hello, I'm Attorney Thomas Levine, representing the applicant. The applicant, Christine Tibbs, is with us tonight, as well as the engineers and master grower, and the other engineering group here. So we are proposing a Class C grow at this site, and we'll be complying with all the state licensing requirements and the various building requirements from your building department as we go. Once the special use permit is granted, then we'll work through the various engineering drawings and all of that, and work toward building departments and comply with all the requirements. And I believe that we are certainly capable to deal with the issues raised in the Payroll letter. Namely, they brought up the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds. And in meeting with the engineers, we're really going over the top, creating negative pressure in the building. And then between the activated carbon filters and the scrubbers, it more than addresses those issues. And the Eagle requirements will be followed, and the engineers will work closely with your building department to ensure that. But we're here ready to answer any questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
I have a question,
Okay.
just because I'm curious, because I've never been around it, but I've heard that the smell is really bad.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable how well these activated carbon filters work in that regard. It really keeps it within the building, within the garden, so the smell does not emanate outside of that room, let alone outside.
Okay.
So it really addresses it. You're right, during the flowering stage, it is a flowering plant, so the smell is quite pungent.
Okay. I had no idea that it smelled during growing, so I was just told that, so.
But this will be entirely indoors, and it's a wholesale operation, so the only people who will be going are just the employees. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Teresa, I can just address that real quickly. When City Council was considering adopting this ordinance, a few of us council members went to tour the facility in Bangor, Green Doors Grow facility, and there was no smell that emanated outside of the building, nor was there in the building unless you went into the specific room, because they had like phases, I guess, of plant development. And so the one room that was ready to be harvested, that did have a very distinct odor, but that was contained in that room. So I didn't smell anything there. And just to clarify, we did discuss that at Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has felt that the MRTMA, you know, the rules from the state level and the regulations that are there would address any of the issues that come up. But were there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And gentlemen, would one of you like to speak?
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Gaten Trevillarash. I'm here on behalf of Perigo. I'm an attorney at Warner Norcross and Judd. I'm also here with Rob Summers, who's a director for Environment, Health and Safety at Perigo. And I just want to talk real quick about process and standards, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Summers to talk about the specific information that we would like to see so that we can actually comment and apply that information to the standards that you all are supposed to be applying in order to make your decision. There is no standard that Eagle would be applying here. So it cannot be said that if we let Eagle handle this, that they will make sure that the emissions are protected, because Eagle specifically said we're not regulating these yet. They are not regulating indoor grow facilities at this time. So whether these emissions are going to be acceptable or not for the particular location where this is going to be next to a food and drug packaging and storage facility is really a question left up to you, because Eagle is not going to make that decision. They're just not. You're the only one standing between it being there and not. So, and you're the only ones who would be able, who have a standard that I'm aware of that could be enforced to require a certain level of emissions be maintained and nothing more than that. There are specific standards in your ordinance that apply here. One of them, of course, being you're well familiar with them, I'm sure, but the 801.12A, that it shall not adversely affect existing adjacent uses, and 801.01F, that it won't be environmentally objectionable to nearby properties, and I'm paraphrasing here, due to emissions greater than other permitted uses. Now, the only way to know whether that's true or not, whether it adversely affects or not, or whether it's environmentally objectionable or not, is to know what is going to be coming out of the facility. And we don't have any of that information right now. I'm going to let Mr. Summers talk about what that would look like. But there was a comment made during the planning commission that, well, we'll let the engineer handle it. Well, the problem with that process is the engineer isn't applying these standards. You're applying these standards. And it is perfectly appropriate, and in this case we think it's necessary, to have that looked at first, have the engineer provide consultation to the council on this issue. This is done in many situations. We have, the example I gave the planning commission was, there are some situations where you don't need to look at what the engineering plans are before it's constructed, before you approve the special use. Like if you have a safety path and you want to know how thick the asphalt is, that doesn't affect any other adjacent properties, how thick the asphalt is in the safety path. You can let the engineer deal with that in the administrative review after the special use is approved. You just want to make sure there's a safety path there. But with the lighting, you have a lighting plan, and you have planning consultants that comment on the lighting plan, and how is this light going to affect the adjacent properties, because it does, and they make sure that there you have certain kinds of lights that only shine downward, or that they're not above certain lumens, and so on and so forth. That's done before you make your decision, because you want to make sure that it's actually, and you let the adjacent property owners comment on it. Give them an opportunity to say something if they think that it's not good enough. Without the information about what is going to be coming out of the plant here, without having, and I'll let Mr. Summers elaborate, information on what kind of filters. I mean, yes, we know generally speaking, they have to have activated carbon filters. They're not all created equal, just like not all the filters you buy for your house and your HVAC are created equal. Some are more effective than others, some are larger than others. So we just want to be able to have that information so we can comment on it in advance. And very well, if the representations made are true, that they're going over the top, our concerns will be, I'm sure, assuaged. Mr. Summers, can you elaborate a little bit? Sure. On the specifics.
I'm Rob Summers. I'm the EHS director from Perigo. The main points are, from a design standpoint, we don't know what's being put in. So for an air pollution control equipment, Eagle is not today regulating any emissions from any of their growing facilities. They don't know what the numbers should be and what regulations they need to put in place. They're studying it. If you look at the guidance information, the FAQs they put out there, so they're not putting a specific number. If you look at what's been happening in other states and counties, you look at Denver, you look at Colorado, I mentioned it previously. They're generating data. They're understanding what's going on with growing facilities. As I think you mentioned, the smell that you smelled at different plants that were in different growth, on the growth curve smelled differently. Same issue from an emissions standpoint. The amount of VOCs, probably my guess is, would correspond with that growth curve. The terpenes that are coming off that are volatile organic compounds. We just want to know what it is. If you have a facility already and you're doing measurements and you know what's coming out of the stack, you know that the carbon absorption units that you're putting on there or the wet scrubbers or the combination of the two is adequate, that's great. We just don't know what it is. But there's data being generated currently. A number of universities and state agencies in Colorado are working on that and have come up with numbers and potential to emit or emission calculations. So there are things that could be applied to understand what they are, but there isn't a standard that Michigan's going to put out anytime soon, is my guess. They're talking about and thinking about it, and who knows how long that will be. But we're operating today, and they'll be operating soon. So we just want to understand what it is, what the design is, so that we can say, yeah, that looks good, or no, we don't think that's adequate. We're concerned about our intake air into our facility. That is what we're really looking for, is from an air permitting standpoint, to understand that the emissions are going to be controlled and they won't have an impact with it on our facility. The other things I mentioned previously, ozone non-attainment and those things, this county is in ozone non-attainment. So there are potential implications to our operations. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell you what that's going to be. But if there's VOC emissions, it will have an impact in the future if we continue with non-attainment. That's something I can't tell you today, but that will impact emissions. Their emissions and our emissions will both have restrictions. So just want to put that on record too, that there is a potential impact to us in what we'll be doing in our business, along with potential intake air and things like that. That's the main things I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Council, did you have any questions for the reps from Payroll?
I guess I don't know enough about it. I'm trying to digest all this. Part of me wants to table it till we can take in more information. And then part of me wants to side with Payroll because they're an existing company. Part of me wants to side with a new business. So I'm kind of torn, so.
Did you have any specific questions that would help you?
No, I just don't know enough to even form the proper question at this point.
Okay.
So I don't think I even have an answer if we were to get to that point tonight.
Okay. Roger, did you have something?
So Eagle doesn't know, is what I heard. Eagle
Right.
doesn't know, but you said that like Colorado, other states that are further along this process
Correct.
have the data. So are you suggesting that we should go to them and look at what they're saying and apply it to our situation here?
Yes, just in general, from the unknown standpoint, Eagle has, and, we made contact with Eagle also, and, they put it bluntly, we're looking at what they're doing, we're paying attention to what they're doing, but we yet have not formulated how we want to respond to it. We know there's potential emissions coming off of it. We know there are volatile organic compounds, and we know that they're in a non-attainment zone also. We know that it impacts the overall plan, but we can't say how we're going to manage it in Michigan. In Colorado, it is having a significant impact. Totally different. It's apples and oranges. Obviously, this is one facility we're talking about. In Denver, there's 200 facilities. And the impact that they're talking about is significant for them. Is that going to be the case in Allegan? I don't think so, but I don't have a crystal ball to say that we're going to have 200 facilities in 5 years or 10 years. But that's what's happening in Denver, is that they have a lot of facilities and they do have a significant amount of VOCs being generated, and they're able to track it, based on growing seasons and based on time of the year and things like that. They've been doing a lot of analytical data and are determining there are issues with VOCs coming off those.
And just for my clarification, Payroll as an organization is not opposed to this. You just want to be comfortable that with what emissions are coming out of the grow facility, that it's not going to negatively impact you.
Absolutely.
So
It's
you're
just-
not saying, we don't want this, you're saying, we just want to make sure that we're all good.
Yeah,
It's not gonna
we just
affect
want to
it.
understand it. We're not saying that we don't want the facility to go in. We just want to understand what it is that's going in, how many plants? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 5,000? Just trying to understand the scale of the operation and potential emissions based on that scale, and then the control technologies they plan on using. We have to, in our own operations, we have to submit applications because we're permitted and tell them exactly what our control technologies are and the efficiency of those technologies. In this situation, there isn't a permitting program, so they won't have to tell anybody that. There are the odor concerns that, they have to address, and carbon absorption normally addresses that. So they may not say the size of the carbon bed, they may not say what the throughput should be. Those are very specific things that air programs normally do. It's different than just odor control, to stop the smell.
Are there any other questions, Peter?
Well, they said a Class C, which would be 1,500 plants, not saying that they're stacking. So we know how many plants based on the licensing from the state. We do have in our zoning or in our ordinance standards of, I think, the CFM has to be rated at 1/3 the building volume going through the carbon filters per hour. We did address some of this when we had developed these, back when I was on planning. We did look at all these type of issues. It's hard to say, does Payroll monitor VOCs?
Sure, we do.
Are they licensed under the state on some standard? Okay.
Yeah, we have permit limits that are pounds per hour.
Pounds per hour?
Or tons per year, ultimately.
Okay.
But just the specifics of, I understand the classification, but that's a range. Is it 1,500? Is it one? Yeah, I'm just asking for specifics of what it's going to be. Waste management, some of the other things that were mentioned, the information that was provided, for this group, it's what the regulation says, not specifically what they're going to do. How are they managing waste? How are they managing wastewater? How are they managing air? It was just what is the guidance from the state, not specifically what they plan to do. That's what we're looking for. And air is obviously our primary concern.
Council, are there any other questions? No? Go ahead,
I
Dave.
can kind of relate to what Mike was saying about it. It feels like we might not have enough information. It sounds like that's the core of Parago's challenge in this situation too, is just there's not specific information that can be assessed in it without a staff engineer giving us like an independent opinion on this, or making sure that we're in compliance with what our ordinance says. It just feels like we don't have enough information yet for me to feel comfortable with moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
May I?
For sure, come on up.
Mark Peck, Middleville. We're talking about biogenic VOCs. So they're created by everything, every plant out there. So any flower that gives off a smell is going to be a biogenic VOC. So that field of grass itself is producing biogenic VOCs. So by us replacing it, we're actually going to be putting out fewer biogenic VOCs that currently exist at that location. So we're not talking about the chemical VOCs, we're talking biogenic. Like I said, they're given out by trees, mulch, grasses, everything, leaves rotting, you name it. So they are doing studies, but the studies they're doing in Colorado right now, it's in suburban areas. So they're replacing buildings that don't have plants with buildings that do have plants now. So when you have 200 grows in a city setting, you're going to create biogenic VOCs. So it's just plants in general, that's what they do, so. Yeah. So basically, we're going to be putting out cleaner air than what exists there currently, so that's all. If you have any questions.
And could you just explain your relationship to this
Oh,
discussion?
I'm sorry, I'm partnered in it, and I'm going to be the grower at the location, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think also part of it is the sequence of things. Once we get this approval, then we'll spend the money on the detailed engineering drawings, and we're perfectly willing to share those with Perigo. We're corresponding with the other attorney and I, and, you know, we're willing to share those engineering drawings as they're developed, but in terms of the sequence of things, we provided the site plan, the exterior lighting plan, what's required at this stage. But the next stage, we'll get into the details of the engineering drawings, just in terms of the sequence of things. Thank you.
Dave, did you have a question for ma'am?
Christine Tibbetts with MRK Development. I just want to make a comment again with the special use permit that we are meeting the, guidelines of what you want for that. And the next step is meeting, having our engineers meet with the city's engineers and making sure that our plan meets what everyone's guidelines is, including Perigo's. And we do intend on doing above and beyond what's required to make sure that we're not, having any smells or the VOCs or anything else. So that is our intent, and I don't think at this juncture the special use permit necessarily requires that engineering. It's something that happens after the special use permit. As he said, it's kind of like a timing thing.
Any questions, council? Roger?
I think like all of us, I'm processing. So I'm trying to think of our process, and the approving this special use permit would be our last stop in this. Is that correct? This does not
For
come back
council.
to council.
Correct.
So it almost seems like, would we be able to give a conditional approval that says that we can move forward, that would allow them to move forward, but then say, contingent on the
And that
fact
the
that you have
conditions
to-
are met.
Yeah, have to meet those conditions. Is that reasonable? It seems like we've done that in the past with other projects.
Yep.
Would we want to maybe get, like an opinion from our council on that first? Just to make sure, you mentioned like the process, and we heard a little bit about process earlier. I want to be clear, I'm not against this development, and, like Mike, I want to weigh the impact to existing companies there, and Perigo's obviously a big company, but making sure that because we're making a really important decision right now, and we have an obligation and a responsibility to make sure our ordinances are enforced, and without senior staff here to provide input or our council to weigh in, I'm just not sure I'm in a good position to make the call tonight. And I don't want it to be a no, so that's where I'm kind of with Mike, like, should we just table this until we can get better information?
That's at the discretion of council. I will say that the planning commission had approved, as long as the conditions were met, for the site plan, and then recommended up for council as far as the special use permit with conditions.
But it seems, are those, I'm trying to remember now, the conditions that Perigo is raising here, was that the conditions that?
The
were in that?
potential conditions that we approved with was City of Allegan staff from the fire and the DPW, a requirement for the plan for the marijuana waste storage and disposal, which we received, a requirement for the chemicals to be used in, on-site cultivation processes, plans for odor elimination control and maintenance of negative indoor air pressure. Specification condition was placement number of building-mounted lights. They needed to give us a light plan. And then a discussion of whether do we require landscaping in the rear yard. We, at planning, had said that wasn't anything we were overly concerned with. And then whether to require a schedule of lighting intensity, meaning would lights dim after a certain period of time.
But none of that's dealing with the actual data of what what output they're gonna have in emissions and things
Correct,
like
there was
that.
nothing with that.
Right, so,
And understanding that the state doesn't really have any requirements as far as that's concerned either.
Well, odor control is.
The odor
emission.
control is one,
Odor
but-
control is the VOC emissions. That's what our ordinance actually addresses. To remind everybody, we did approve having marijuana grow facilities, knowing that the only places in town that would be suitable for them are manufacturing.
M1.
M1, and distances from schools pretty much eliminated it down to that plot. There wasn't any other plots in the industrial park. I think there's only one other plot inside the city that is M1 that would be suitable for distances. So we did approve this initially back when we approved the ordinance and the zoning.
And at this point, the application is, except for these conditions I noted, has met the ordinance as we have required. So I'm looking for a motion, council.
I think we need more time.
Yeah, I guess at this point, I'd like to table it until the attorney can get us back an opinion, hopefully as soon as, our next meeting.
So,
So
real
could-
quick, I know that's been mentioned now by two council members. I want to clarify for our note-taking, what, I want to clarify what legal questions the council has for our attorneys. We haven't met with city attorneys on, regarding this issue since the original development proposal. I want to say that we don't follow exactly where this conversation is going with legal counsel. So I want some clarification there from council members Redding and Zeter.
That's a good question in itself. Obviously, there's some questions here, or Perigo attorney and the new attorneys would not be sitting in the room with us, because I'm sure you're not here to look at me. That's, there's an issue here. So I guess I really want to hear from our attorney, is there an issue that we're getting in, allowing something above and beyond what the ordinance approves on our books? Is it gonna affect us later?
So, yeah, so there's that process question that was raised of who's actually responsible for making sure these ordinances get followed. And then there may be some questions about liability on our side in relation to that, but I think understanding that process at a core is probably a good first step. And Roger had raised a question about, can we pass this with conditions, or is this kind of our last stop to make that approval? Or are we saying this can move forward, and how standing are those conditions?
So we do have a motion on the floor. Mike, could you just reiterate what your motion was, please? That to table?
To table the discussions and till the attorney can render opinion if we're liable for something we haven't even thought of.
We have a motion on the floor.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Council, is there any further discussion?
So is the motion just that we're tabling this?
To table this to get a legal opinion from our council, from our city's attorney.
Do we need a legal opinion? I kind of agree with what Parker was saying. Why, we have an ordinance,
So,
they're
yep.
following the ordinance.
So we have a
Our basic
motion
thing
with
is-
support, yep.
Yeah.
I would say we've got, let's say, two differing expert opinions in front of us, and we lack an independent expert opinion to resolve it. And I would argue that Perigo as an institution has a lot of compliance and environmental control knowledge that makes me wonder what their expectations are about process and things. And so when I've got two expert opinions that are conflicting and I don't have another expert opinion to rely on.
Okay, I see
So
what you're saying.
as far as compliance goes, that's something that is run through PCI. And I believe their documents were shared in your packet as well. So it's been reviewed.
PCI said staff should do an engineering assessment of the build. And so that was what I was asking, if staff had done an engineering
Okay.
assessment first.
Understood.
So the process is that we would approve a special use permit, and then it goes to that next step where they would review. And that's, I believe, the issue that Perigo has, is that we would be approving the special use prior to having all of that information in front of us. Is that correct, gentlemen? Okay. But that information would need to come in front of us and be approved by city staff. And then, so that's where that is. But we do have a motion on the floor with support. Is there any further discussion? So I'm going to call,
Well, it is, because I don't want to vote on this yet, because I'm not exactly sure what I'm voting on. Because I am not opposed to this. I just feel like there's been questions raised that I don't know that we have answers for. And I feel like I need more time to make sure that those are being addressed. And I appreciate that you said you're going to go above and beyond, and that's great, but that's a handshake deal. And I don't know, I want to make sure everybody's more.
so we have to
And
deal
I
with,
don't know
yeah.
that Nick Kersey, I don't know if our council is the one to give those answers. I think we just have to figure out.
So, yep. So we need to take care of this motion before we can go further.
So can we
So
repeat the motion?
the motion is, and correct me if I'm wrong, to table the discussion until we have opinion from our city council. And by that I mean city attorney.
Legal counsel.
Legal counsel.
I think that's a good play. I mean, I'd be open to plenty of other information to help resolve this, but.
Can we amend that? Can we amend it, or do we have to vote on it first?
You can make an amendment.
So I'm for tabling it. I don't necessarily know that we need a legal opinion. Can we table it just until we have, so we can get some more information before we make this decision? I would be inclined to vote for that, to give us 2 more weeks.
Could you just restate your amended motion, please?
So the amended motion would be to table this discussion for 2 weeks to give us more time to research and satisfy the questions that have been raised.
And could we specify what questions those are, so the applicant knows what information to get to us?
Well, it was a question of emissions, and I realize that you have engineering issues that you're not there yet. Excuse me. But there was a question raised on what scrubbers or air scrubbers, or the carbon scrubbers, is that it? That are going to be used, and what, is there data that you have from another facility that you could say, this is a similar facility, that would make the Perigo feel more comfortable, and that would allow us to feel more comfortable? And again, I realize I'm asking questions about something that I don't know that much about.
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge, Roger, is like, I'd hate for you to be in a position where you're asking for specific engineering data when you're not an engineer. And that's where it's like, I think information about what our role is in this and what our obligations and liabilities are is probably the most relevant to me. So I've got one side saying, it's okay, move forward and we'll get there. And the other side saying, no, now is the time. I don't know which side to go with.
Did you have something really quickly? Could you just introduce yourself and explain your
My name is
relationship?
David Grundy, and I work for Advantage Mechanical. I'm the service manager, and this is kind of like my expertise is indoor air quality and just indoor air. We have some facilities up in up Grand Rapids areas that we use scrubbers and these cam fill type VOC collectors and charcoal filters. I'd be glad to provide the data. Okay. Can I pass?
So this is data that you would have, I'm sure that we're going to need a little bit of time to review and need data. So,
Okay.
but that is something that you would have available to be able to share?
Yes.
Okay.
I can, as soon as we can get some engineering prints and stuff like that, I can select the size of data that we the size equipment that we need. Sorry, I'm new to this, but it's a standard practice for us in my business to ensure we have, good indoor air quality, outdoor air quality, stuff like that, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So Roger, I'm going to have you one more time, just kind of restate that.
Maybe say it again. But I guess that's kind of what I want to see.
Okay.
Because you're right, Dave, I don't know, but if he can provide that data to these guys and they go, okay, this is good, that's what I want to hear, right? And I think you guys, as the experts, can figure that out, and I don't have to be, but I'd like to make sure everybody's good, because we want to be good neighbors, we want to, and I think that serves to keep us.
Okay, so we have an amended motion.
To
Table
table
this
this
discussion
discussion
until
for
the
2
next
weeks, until our next
Meeting?
meeting.
Does that give you ample time to get that information collected and disseminated?
What's the information that's required?
We're looking for the specific carbon filtration system and what it will collect or would be released.
Which is gonna require engineering costs that we normally don't do until we get a special.
Right, right.
So are you asking us to incur the cost?
You can do some, I mean, he does calculations based on the square footage. He can come up with an idea. Your indoor air quality person, he'll be able to do calculations based on the square footage to be able to say, here's what we propose. Typically a motor, what's the best available technology? He'd be able to define all that without spending, I would think, a lot of money to be able to answer our questions. At least that's my opinion, that he should be able to give an idea of, size, motors, square footage that it will cover, and, what's the best available technology and efficiency. 99%, 95%, between the combination. I've heard carbon filtration, I've heard scrubbers, 2 different technologies. So are they going to be both, and how are they going to go? Sequence.
Okay, so the amended motion is on the floor. Could I get a support for that motion?
Support.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor for tabling this for 2 weeks and obtaining some additional information regarding the air quality? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
No. Motion carries 5-2. Okay. Thank
Mayor,
you, everybody.
Point of order on that. I do know we have like 10F in our ordinance that does say an alternative odor control is permitted. With engineer, it says alternative odor control systems are permitted if a special use applicant submits a report by mechanical engineer licensed in the state of Michigan sufficiently demonstrating the alternative, but we're not seeking, I don't think, alternative.
No.
So
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 11F.2, which is a request to partner with Brave Art Studios and Gallery to host a benefit to raise money for the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund. Parker?
Yeah, thank you to those of you who were just a part of that last discussion. If you'd like to leave, you are more than welcome to. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to do that as well. So the next request in front of council here is coming from Brave Art Studios and Gallery, located just outside of the city on Lincoln Road. We do have a representative from Brave Art, Tim Carr, there in the back. If he would like to come up and speak at any point, he may. But this is a fairly straightforward request. It's a pretty unique one and something that city staff is excited about partnering with a local gallery for. This ask is for use of the Griswold Auditorium in partnership with the city to help raise money for the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund through the Global Giving Initiative. This benefit event that's been proposed by Brave Art will feature various artists who will sell their artwork at the Griswold. Those funds, the artwork specifically highlights the incorporation of sunflowers into that art. And a portion of those sales will then go toward the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund. In addition to those sales raised through the art, there will also be a $10 admission fee. There will be music coordinated by the folks at Brave Art, and then in discussions with that group and our connections to food trucks, area food trucks, it was asked that we kind of coordinate a truck to be on site for the duration of this event as well. This event will take place on April 30th from 5 to 9. This is an open and available date on the Griswold calendar. It worked for the folks at Brave Art Studios and the artists that they've invited to this event. As a note too, on your included in your agenda packet was a note about Global Giving. They are a 4-star rated entity through Charity Navigator. So that's something that can give a little confidence to those that are considering donating through this relief fund. And then attached and up on the screen is a proposed banner that they will use to advertise the event. Because of the nature of this benefit event and the partnership through the city and the Griswold with Brave Art Studios, it is asked that there is no charge be put forth toward Brave Art for use of the building.
Hi, sir. Did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Tim Carr with Brave Art Studios. My wife is the artist. This is a very exciting thing. We sit and twiddle our thumbs and wonder what we can do to help out. And this kind of was a brainchild of ours that we could round up artists. We have a vast network. We've already got over a dozen committed to this. And actually, some of them are donating their art for silent auction. So 100% of that sale will go straight to the relief organization. So, for us, it's a way of being involved. It's a way of, spreading the word about the help of Ukraine, as well as spreading the word about art and the uplifting of value.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Were there any questions, council, for staff?
What areas of the building is being used for this? Is it just the Marilla Lounge? Is it the downstairs?
The Marilla Lounge area, as well as that, the main lobby area will be used to display the art pieces. And then we haven't gotten to the discussion of where the musicians will be set up. If it's a small enough act, they can be easily housed in the Marilla Lounge. If it's something a little larger, it may be something that... Perfect. There's the answer there. So very easily can be set up in the Marilla Lounge, if not the lobby area. So those will be the two areas that the...
And the other question I have is alcohol license. I saw serving alcohol. Is that using one of formerly Positively Allegan? What's their current names, licenses?
Yes, yeah. So for licensing sake, it is still under Positively Allegan, you're correct. As an entity, its face value rebranded to Downtown Allegan, but that is part of the proposed ask as well. Thank you for reminding me of that, is that one of those 12 licenses that Positively Allegan is granted a year be used for this event. Currently on our calendar for those 12 licenses, it was something in the past that we didn't have enough of for Rolling on the River, events at the Griswold, New Year's Eve. Now, with the social district, that's a benefit to us, to the Positively Allegan group, is not having to utilize all of those licenses and then seek out other entities. So what we've got on the calendar, in addition to this, are a couple of upcoming concerts in May at the Griswold, and then a few more planned for the fall time. Specific dates not yet determined, but we feel that we have enough to utilize an extra for this event.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the partnership between the City of Allegan and Brave Art Studio and Gallery to host that benefit on April 30th?
So move.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.3, which is an adoption of Resolution 22.13 to purchase, acquire, and construct capital improvements and to publish notice of intent to issue municipal securities. Tracy, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, this is pretty much what I was discussing earlier with the review of the downtown streetscape project. This resolution just allows us to publish the notice of intent to issue bonds up to not, to exceed the 4.5 million. This is just so that we don't have to come back and ask for more. So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. And this is for the general fund side of it, not the water and not the sewer.
Thanks, Tracy. Council, did you have any questions? Okay, seeing no questions.
Well,
David?
is this just an open-end thing, that it's just there, or is it
No,
specifically
it's
for?
specifically for this project.
I believe there's probably not an exact amount on that because we don't know what we're going to end up with as far as grant funding and other outside funding. But it will not exceed that 4.5 million. Is that correct, Tracy?
Correct.
Okay. Dave, did you have a question?
Yeah, so what's the estimate for what we would need right now? Was it like 1.9 million?
Yeah.
So how, I mean, put that into context for me. Is this like a 30-year bond? Is that like a, how much
It was,
per year?
we haven't even really got the debt schedule or anything like that, but they usually calculate it 15, 20 for the gold bonds. And it can go out longer for water and sewer, because obviously that stuff lasts longer than streets and things like that. So, it's usually 15 to 20 years on these ones.
Could you give like a ballpark figure of what the annual payment would be for something? I know,
I think, well, we borrowed, 2 million on this building-ish, and I think it's 175,000 a year.
okay. So then a 4.5 million bond, we would estimate it like 350 grand or maybe 400 grand.
Yeah, I don't anticipate us moving forward with this project and borrowing that much. Like, I'm not comfortable borrowing the general fund or the gold part of it at all, but we have to with timing and things on grants and the other things that are in line with this, the other bonds that we had published last council meeting, I think it was, or the one
Water
before.
and sewer one.
We were supposed to do this one at the same time.
Well, okay. So is it like we missed a step in the water sewer bonds?
Nope, no, we're good with those ones.
Okay,
We were just supposed to do this one too, to cover all anything else that might, like the contingencies and things like that. And that's gonna have to come from the general fund. It can't come from water and sewer. The water and sewer parts are more solid, the numbers that we have, the expenses that we have on those sides.
right.
The other part, like Joel said at the other meeting, like park benches and trees might have to be cut back or whatever in that downtown streetscape. So if we wanted to go and have the coolest things down here, we could spend 4.5 million easily. Tony, are you still here? No?
He left.
But what we're saying is, depending on like the things that have to happen with sidewalks and whatever, like, do we do all the trees? Do we do all trees? Do we do all the lights? Do we do all the park benches and bike racks and things like that? Those are things you could wait on and not spend. So if we wanted to go that route and we get all this extra grant money and stuff like that, and this bond notice of intent is just to cover us so we don't have to come back and go through a whole process again. If we only ask for 1 million, but we need 2 million, we have to go through this all again, and it holds things back with the bonding.
So we're not committing to a budget amount tonight. We're
Nope.
like opening up. I guess what exactly does this mean if,
All this is doing is publishing in the paper that we are intending to borrow money to do this downtown streetscape, not to exceed $4.5 million. That's all this is doing.
so we're gonna put in the paper that we're gonna borrow up to $4.5 million.
Yep,
We wanna have the ability, we're gonna put that in
Correct.
the paper, we're gonna have the ability to borrow $4.5 million.
if needed, yep.
That's a lot of money that I'm not comfortable just saying, sounds good.
So this isn't approving the bond, you guys would do that.
But we did this same thing on those other, and then it looks like those are approved.
The notice of intent was approved
And
to
that's
be
what this is.
published. That's exactly what this is. This is just a notice of intent, or to publish the notice of intent. So
So,
we're,
I'm sorry, Tracy, but to clarify, when we do actually go out for the bond, that information comes to council, and we have the ability to approve or deny that,
Correct.
the amount. We could say, no, we're not going to approve this.
We don't have $4.5 million in the budget. When I present you guys with the proposed budget, we're not proposing borrowing $4.5 million, but we have to publish a number so that we can borrow it when the time comes, when we get to the bonding process.
Tracy, why did you pick 4.5 million?
I did not, the bond council did,
Okay, so that was their recommendation?
yes.
Okay, just
So
to
that
cover
we-
our bases essentially.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
to clarify, the 4.5 million, and then the other bonds were for what amount? So we're actually putting our risk factor up there for well over that. Where
And-
does that put us in the future if we needed to go there later?
So with that number that the bond council recommended, we put in this notice of intent. The other ones were, I think water was 1 point, Parker, do you have that? That chart? I did not, I left that printout on my desk. But it was 1.04 for water and 1.4 something for sewer, I believe.
Something like that.
And then like 1.9 for, so basically the 4.5 is if we don't get any or any grants or use any general fund money, that's kind of why they picked that number. If something else happens and we have to use that $1 million fund balance for something else, we at least have this as a way to do it, which we would never do because we're not gonna borrow money if we don't have it. But we have to publish the notice of intent.
So if we
So
would
that
never
we're-
do it, we don't need to approve that much.
Say that again?
This was just a recommendation from the bond council
Yeah, I
for
think
that amount, Mike, so.
the term cover our bases was used, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment. So what this is a recommendation from the bond council for this amount, for this project that the city is trying to pull off. And the notice of intent is just to say, if it comes down to it, the city council, and we have, noticed that intent that we could spend up to 4.5 million. It's not, you're not approving
That-
the spending at this
Right.
time.
And
With the
that-
understanding that the actual bond amount comes back to us, Mike, and if it's at a certain level that we're not comfortable, and Tracy's not comfortable bonding,
Yeah.
we don't do that project
Well,
to that degree.
Isn't
It's
one
just
of
like when
the-
you go and you're gonna go buy a house and you get pre-approved for a loan. You're not gonna go, get pre-approved for $200,000 and then,
You can only afford
right.
50,000.
Well, isn't there, like a requirement in our charter or something that says that we need to let the public know in case they want to challenge our,
That's what this is, publishing the notice of intent.
so, I mean, do we have a feel for how the public would interpret us putting out a $4.5 million bond versus a
Two.
lower bond we might know later? And do we have a sense of like how early do we have to get that
Another
out?
thing that I just want to add in there is, if you add up the 1.5 for water and the 1.1 for sewer, plus the 4.5 million, that's the project. So that was their justification for that amount.
That I
And if we
understand,
get
yeah.
the grants, then that just takes off of what we would need to borrow. So that is the whole reason behind it.
And I can appreciate the subtlety in that number, and I can appreciate my control in that process. What I'm wondering though is if that subtlety would come across in our public notice, and if the public would feel they have, again, if the intent here is a communication to the public about how much we might borrow, I'm just thinking in terms of how the public might receive a number like 4.5 million and what our requirements are here, what the timing might be for when, if we know more about what we might spend and how many grants we would get later on, and we can publish a notice of intent in time with a lower number that's more in line. Again, just
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but with the timeline of the other, the water and sewer parts of the bonds and things like that, it's the whole package and the timing of, things that have to be submitted to the state and things like that, so it's,
Yeah. To answer your question, David, I guess about gauging the temperature of the public, if you will. As far as financially, I don't really think there's been a temperature check quite yet until this point. I mean, it's been, as you know, since 2018, having this discussion about a streetscape improvement project in some fashion. So in terms of measuring the public's engagement on that level, that step had to come first to, make sure we had the public buy-in on a design. There was different proposals made at different public meetings and such, and DDA and downtown lowdown, and we've continued those conversations. Now it's a monthly topic at our downtown lowdown meetings and our DDA meetings and our public spaces meetings. So everybody's on, our board members, our downtown businesses and building owners are on that same page. There's excitement in what we're now finally hoping to pull off. Now, after the financial structuring has been whittled down to this point, now we're going to get that temperature engagement on, how the public feels about this ask. Hopefully, after 4 years of engaging with them about the design and the prospect of what could be, it's a heavy ask, but hopefully that heavy ask is a little harder, or a little easier, to swallow, knowing the product that we're gonna get out of it, knowing the improvements that are gonna be made to our downtown. So I think now is that point where we're gonna get that feedback. And like was referenced during the study session about the grants and additional funding. We're still working on it. I mean, Mayor Andrus mentioned meeting with Peter DeCow from Senator Peters' office and the potential in getting funding there. I know that Joel has had meetings with local stakeholders about their involvement in this project and what they could bring forth. So we're still seeking the potential for that amount borrowed to be lowered when we receive grants or gifts.
Well, maybe it would help to understand, is there like a companion public relations campaign that staff is planning for in conjunction with this notice? So
Yeah.
what I'm worried about is in a vacuum, the notice going in the paper, hey, the city wants to borrow $4.5 million.
Absolutely.
And everybody not following what you've explained.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen how that goes
Yeah.
in other instances.
There's been some challenging communication, I think council's right. So again, I'm coming back to that.
Sure.
What are we doing?
What's that?
Just how are we approaching that communication?
Yeah. I
believe that staff would be available for any questions or concerns that people would have.
And
Michaela, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add really quick that I work up front at the front desk the majority of the week. And so I answer the phones and talk to the people that come in and whatever. And it's been about 6 weeks since you guys approved the other bonding. So that was about a little over 2 million, and I haven't heard a peep about it. So I would say that if there's negative feedback, we're not hearing it. So at this point, that's basically what we've heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any other questions?
Well, I heard it come a couple different ways, and I'm getting very confused. So you said a few weeks back, we approved this.
Just the notice of intent to be published, which was.
Right, but you said we approved that much for,
No, just a notice of intent to be published.
I know, but you didn't say it that way, and that's where not only
So she's-
myself, but the
Yeah, she's
public-
clarifying, Mike. So
And-
we approved the notice of intent to publish in the paper, so that went into the paper, and they have not heard any feedback from that.
Right, but it's
So-
these little hiccups and things that are said that are I'm gonna get a whole slew of questions on this, and I'm not really sure how to answer all those. I just know that if we use Tracy's example, let's say I wanna buy a $200,000 house and the bank says, well, Mike, we'll approve up to 201, so you're good. But that doesn't cover me when I know I'm gonna need a vehicle here pretty quick. And I don't know where I'm gonna get a good reliable vehicle for one. So if there's something else coming up, and I know we got the roundabout, we got the Iron Bridge, we got all these other projects that we're trying to work in, we're not the US government. We just can't print money and sell that to other countries to make it work. How are we gonna make it work when our bonding process is maxed out?
And that's where we'll get into that when we actually have to go out for bond. So I feel like we've had this discussion and it's just kind of going in a circular motion now. So if we could just get a motion, if there's nothing outside of what's already been discussed, to adopt Resolution 22.13. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
I'm gonna say no at this point because it's just not making sense financially.
Okay, so Dave, did you vote aye or no? Okay.
I voted in favor with the
Okay.
acknowledgement of staff that they were gonna handle the PR on this, and they've got a plan, and so that should work out.
Okay, motion approved 6-1. Next, we have 11F.4, which is a request to approve a special contract with a West Michigan band to utilize the Griswold Auditorium for their practice space. Parker?
Yes, so this is a unique and I think cool opportunity for the Griswold and for the city, and I've got my man behind the curtain, Ryan Berza, is back there on controls for this meeting, for our live stream. So if needed, he can step out to answer some questions. He's been working more closely with this group than I have, so he's got a little bit better insight. But the West Michigan band mentioned is goes by the name of Roslyn Hart and the Gold Coast. They are not local to Allegan per se. One of their band members is originally from this area. I believe is a graduate of Allegan High School as well. But at this point, they're displaced over West Michigan. They don't all live in the same area, and Allegan is kind of the central meeting location for this group. They are looking for a place to rehearse as a band, and were made aware of the Griswold and reached out to us about practice space. And in negotiating with the group, Ryan and I drafted an agreement that makes the building a little more accessible for a three-piece. I think at most, sometimes they play as a four-piece band. But the rates of the use of the Marilla Lounge are at a higher threshold than they were willing to pay on an hourly rate. So again, in negotiating with the band, we reduced the rental rate in exchange for a free performance. I referenced earlier some events in the fall time. One of those is being earmarked as a benefit event for the Griswold to help raise money for that facility. This is a way, by leveraging a free performance from a group, helps with the cost when putting together a benefit event, not having to put in money when you're trying to raise those funds, to which the band agreed to. And also what we were able to negotiate was the day of the month in which they practice at that facility, being council nights, the second and fourth Mondays of each month. In that case, then Ryan can meet the group shortly or around 5 o'clock, let them in. Doesn't have to be in the building physically. We don't have to pay a staff member to sit there. He's here doing his work, and then at the conclusion of a council meeting, after he wraps up his duties here, he can stop by the Griswold to shut off lights, clean up after them if need be, shouldn't have to, and then lock up the facility then there too. So, and again, they agreed to those nights of the month to hold their practices. So what we're doing here is just looking for your approval for this special use of the building that helps this band as well as helps the Griswold itself to have a free performance at a later date. I think we've earmarked it for early October for that benefit event.
Thanks, Parker. Council, are there any questions for Parker regarding this request?
So if I get it clear, it's only Mondays, it said Mondays and possibly Tuesdays and or?
Yeah, I think there was an and/or on Thursdays.
Thursdays, yep.
Yep.
So,
And in that instance, so Ryan, as a city staff member, is here in this building on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then he's at the Griswold on Tuesdays and Thursdays regularly. In that instance, and when he has events scheduled on the weekends, rentals there, late night rentals that often take place, he flexes his time. So he comes in a little bit later on a Friday morning, and because he's going to be in on Saturday for a few hours, and so his time is very malleable throughout the week. So in that instance, he would be there at the facility.
Yeah, that one's not as much. So I'm figuring probably about $1,200 because it's maybe about 24 practices if it was twice a month, maybe more than that because it's $50 a practice. So I was just trying to get an idea where the amount of the rental fee is so that I get an idea what the total comes in.
Yeah.
So it could be as high as like 5,200, I think, if it was like every Monday and Thursday, but I highly doubt that.
Right, it could be as high as that, but they're not planning on a twice a week, every week kind of deal.
Are they gonna notify, how much in advance do they notify of that use on that day so that we're not locked into having that lounge empty on every Monday and Thursday? How is that gonna work out? Because
Yeah.
we have other rentals and other people that would want to use it at possibly those times.
Yes, and I don't know, this may be something that I need Ryan to step out for, to clarify a bit. But I know that in his preliminary talks with them thus far, I think they're scheduling on a month-to-month kind of basis. Hello.
Ryan, did you hear that question back there?
I sure did.
Excellent.
So at the moment, they, with talking to them about the dates, they've asked for a few, like, just 3 or 4 months in advance, and it's, at this point, has been once a month. Either a Monday if it works for the group, or the Thursday. There aren't many instances that I can think of right now where they have more than once a month. And they usually have a couple dates, they'll be like, does this date or this date work? And if something's already booked, then, you know, I work around, try to make it so it works for everybody.
So they're more flexible to our schedule than
Yeah.
what's booked at the
Yeah.
Griswold? Okay.
And if there's something that's happening, I'm not gonna double book something.
That's kind of my question, because the
Yeah.
rental agreement doesn't specify like when they're to notify us what days they're using, because otherwise it's like every Monday and or Thursday of the month is on the schedule, and I'd probably like to just see that, hey, it says you gotta tell us by, 1 month in advance which days you're gonna choose, just so that we don't have an issue where they're like, well, we have it going by our rental agreement, and you went and rented it, but we have a rental agreement saying Mondays and Thursdays are ours.
Would you feel that would be beneficial to add that language, to have a month in advance?
Yeah, we can definitely modify that, and pop that in
Yeah,
there.
and Ryan met with them at the space last week and had a really positive interaction with the group, and vice versa. I think they really thought the space was what they were looking for, and
I'm kind of looking
Are
like the
eager.
month in advance is so that you establish that you have it reserved. And if you want to pop in any other time than that, if it's available on a Monday or Thursday, it's still available at that rate. It's just, we need to kind of at least get that scheduled in advance so that, otherwise it's open here. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any other questions?
I had one question on the fee schedule. I was trying to get a sense of like how much of a discount is this? So I was looking at the fee schedule, and I wonder if there's an error in there. Right now it says Marilla Lounge hourly rent on a weekday is $50, but Marilla Lounge with auditorium or banquet room is $25. Should those be flipped?
nope, it's read correctly. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
that-
like you're renting the banquet room
Correct.
and then you get the Marilla Lounge too?
Yes, it's like a
Oh.
little add-on for an
Okay,
additional
all right,
25 an hour.
okay.
Yep.
So
exactly.
basically, we're charging them what would be an hour rent, but they can stay in there longer. Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, that sounds
Typically,
reasonable.
the time that they have requested is about 3 hours,
Sure.
so.
But on our part, really, the
Yeah.
cost is like opening it up and closing it, so it's
Yep.
not like we're there 3 hours. Yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense.
Okay, are there any further questions? Could I get a motion then, please? And if we are going to add that language, please make sure to state that in your motion.
I'd make a motion to approve with the adding of the language to send us the reservation dates 1 month in advance.
Thank you, Peter. Could we get a support, please?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.5. Thanks, Ryan, for coming out from behind the curtain.
Thank you, Ryan.
11F.5, which is an adoption of Resolution 22.14 to adopt the City of Allegan Health and Welfare Benefit Plan and Summary Plan Description. Tracy, are you going to take this one?
Yep. This is pretty much, this one and the next resolution are a formality. Every 5 years, we're required to update our health and welfare benefit plan and the Section 125 premium only plan. So this is, nothing is changing in it. We've switched from our third-party administrator who helps us with all of our health insurance benefits and things like that, from EBS to SBU, which is Saginaw Bay Underwriters. And they've provided us with this information, and it's been at least 5 years since we've updated it. So this is just getting this cleaned up, and if you have any questions, I can try to answer them for you.
Any questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to adopt Resolution 22.14?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.6, which is an adoption of Resolution 22.15 to adopt the City of Allegan Section 125 Premium Only Plan. Kind of same idea, right, Tracy?
Correct, yep.
Anything more to add to that?
No, this part is just the, pretty much like the federal part of it, that it's pre-tax benefit that we provide for the employees. It gives them a tax break, gives us a tax break, and it's just for the premium only. It's not like they put any extra money in or anything like that, so pretty straightforward, just updating that agreement.
Thank you. Questions, council? Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to adopt Resolution 22.15?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. And finally, we're at 13, communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Staff, anything tonight?
I've got one thing. We were just talking about the Griswold and, an upcoming in the fall benefit concert. I just wanted to point out that there are 2 shows on the Griswold calendar for the end of May, 2 live performances that we were able to book there at the Griswold using funds that were donated to, as it's legally known, Positively Allegan or Downtown Allegan, by Timber Cannabis Company. When they first opened, they reached out to 3 nonprofit organizations, Wishbone in the Allegan Fire Department, and then the Downtown Allegan Group. So we came in 3rd place. We were happy to come in 3rd place behind those 2. But we were gifted $2,500 from Timber, and we were able to use those funds to book a Gordon Lightfoot tribute artist at the Griswold, and Asamu Johnson, the Associates of the Blues, who is an Allegan regular at our live performances. So tickets are on sale now and online at the Griswold site, as well as at the Griswold box office on Tuesdays and Thursdays when Ryan is there, and at the City Hall front desk Monday through Friday. So should be a very good time.
Thanks, Parker. Doug, you've got something.
If I may?
Absolutely.
One real brief update on the Iron Bridge. We had a pre-construction meeting last week with the contractor, MDOT, and our engineer, Avonmarsh. Milbacher, the contractor, is supposed to start next Monday, April 4th. Weather permitting, the project completion date is July 15, I believe, of 2022. So just a quick update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing else from staff? No? Okay, I'm gonna start at this end tonight. Mike, did you have anything?
I got a couple things, I had written some notes. I really like it when the people for requests or appointments are here. So if staff could mention to them, it's really a good idea for them to be here, because if we do have questions above and beyond something, they're right there to answer them for appointments and requests. That's just me, though. And then I had read somewhere that the bridge is changing to one-way, Iron Bridge. Did we vote on that? When did we vote on that?
Prior to your reelection to council. When was that, 2019?
That is correct.
When we approved the plans as well and sent it out for bidding,
Okay,
the
because
second time.
I thought it didn't come before me. Okay. And then, reporting the meetings, I had a few people, tell me, who posts it to the Facebook when there's meetings?
The links to our live stream, that would be me.
Because the special meeting wasn't there, but it was on the website here. And so a lot of people were confused that there was no meeting.
Sure.
So if we start posting somewhere, we really need to continually post there, or it appears as though we're trying to hide something from the public.
Yeah, all of our meetings and that special meeting on Wednesday are posted to our city website. And then we've also got the screen right at the front door that rotate through all of our public meetings. And that special meeting was added to that rotation as well. It was not posted on Facebook. The only other meetings that we do post to Facebook are these meetings. Our other subcommittees don't get posted there regularly, but.
Yeah, that's the challenge. A special meeting is really a special meeting, and if certain things the council meets, I'm just saying, then it's perceived as that's where you go to find information, and it may unravel not in the favor of the city. And then the other thing is a question, trash service. In my neighborhood, pretty much everybody has one trash service. And I understood it that when we do that, that eliminates the different haulers from coming down the roads at all times and trash just being out at the curb all week long. But we have two different haulers on two totally different days, and so that really allows for trash to be out at the curb somewhere. And I was curious, what is the thought on that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there are, I think, at least two approved haulers in the city of Allegan, and I think Mayor Andrus was about to chime in. The discussion regarding a single hauler ordinance in the city has been discussed at this level in the past. It's really never gone past the level of discussion. So if that's something that, at least 4 council members want to bring forward and want to have discussed, that's something that can be done.
But a single hauler, it doesn't even need to be that way, but like my neighborhood, the day is, we put our trash out Tuesday night and then it's picked up Wednesday or Friday. And so, what?
Sure, by the same hauler, you mean?
No, different haulers.
Oh,
2 different haulers are over there picking up.
yeah.
Mine is, I put mine out Tuesday night, and they pick it up Wednesday morning sometime.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it makes no sense to me, and I'm not sure how we got there, so that's why I'm wanting to
Yeah,
know.
that's just company specific or hauler specific. So I don't know. I don't have much knowledge as to how much we can enforce, these companies to pick up on the same day, especially if they're coming around the same time of day. Logistically, how that plays out with pickup, but it's an easy answer to that. Easy, not really, but the single hauler then is on a regular schedule without having multiple trucks. Like I said, I don't know how easily we can enforce two different companies to pick up on the same day.
Yeah, and that was a discussion, Mike, just to speak real quickly, I think in 2018, Mike and Charles are here. I know we discussed single hauler when I first was on council, but council did not want to move forward with that. So that discussion just really hasn't gone anywhere since then.
Okay.
So, yeah, the companies will just do whatever contract day they have.
Kalamazoo's a big area, and the different neighborhoods are really broken down into days, and that's where their trash is picked up. So if they can do it in a big city, I'm sure we can do it in our
I guess that would just be up to the businesses to do that.
Yeah, typically the businesses does that, so they're gonna, of course, pick up a whole neighborhood at once. That's in their best interest. And then sometimes we're kind of at a single hauler because there's really only about one company that owns all the other sub-companies. Republic owns, which is Waste Management. It's all under one umbrella except for, I think, Chief.
Chef, well, they bought Chef.
They bought
Republic
Chef, so
bought
it's-
but it's Allied Waste, so.
Typically, it's pretty much one hauler right now, just because they merged everybody.
Do you have anything else, Mike?
No.
Okay, thank you. Roger, anything from you tonight? Okay. Peter? Teresa?
No, thank you.
Dave? Bill?
Nothing, ma'am.
All right, I don't have anything either. It's 9:10. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.